Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Live here from Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators are getting set to take on the Chicago Blackhawks tonight right here at 7 o'clock on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Couple of good games, by the way, for the Predators. But, of course, we're going to have to start on the Titans. First, though, I want to give a big shout-out to Jarrett Companies, our new presenting sponsor of this program. Jarrett & Company's commercial plumbing, HVAC division, preventative maintenance, and commercial services. Jarrett Company's above and beyond industry standards. And again, these dudes are legit. When I was sitting there and they were saying, hey, Jarrett Companies might be interested in being the presenting sponsor of this program, I said, you got to be kidding me. They're awesome. They're the best. And their Jarrett Company's commercial plumbing and HVAC division will revolutionize the way you experience plumbing and HVAC maintenance, from preventative maintenance like filter changes and coil cleanings to swift, effective repairs. Their specialized local team ensures your facilities operate without a hitch, no matter the size or function. And again, they are our presenting sponsors. Glad to have them aboard this year. And we got a new studio sponsor. That's right. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Visit springhillac.com. Ian, that's a lot right there, but it's very, very exciting times in these parts.
Most definitely. Happy New Year for everybody.
As well. Happy New Year to you. It is not a Happy New Year, though, for the Tennessee Titans. In fact, the year of hell is now officially over. That year of 2023 that started with the Josh Dobbs fumble and ended with the debacle, the butt-kicking against the Houston Texans. And that's a butt-kicking. Like, let's just keep it real around here. That was embarrassing on Sunday. 2023 is now a close. And I have to say this about the Titans. I do not see any defense of the 2023 Tennessee Titans hierarchy. Now, you all know that I've said in the past that if the season were to be over today, I'd fire the GM and the coach. I said after the last Texans game, which was equally as embarrassing, even though that game went to overtime because they played with a junior varsity team, but I said after that one, at the end of the year, they're out. And so right now they can go do their jobs and do whatever, and I wouldn't tell them like, hey, by the way, on Monday, pack your crap. But guess what? That's what I'd be thinking. I'd be down on the field before the game if I owned the team. Yeah, that's a good one, Rand. Yeah, really excited at this time next week. I'd be at St. Thomas Sports Park having a press conference. And unlike David Tepper of the Panthers, I wouldn't be throwing my drink on anybody or not letting any individual media outlets ask me questions because I value accountability. But to me, I don't see any reason why I have any faith in 2024 if the people that ran the show in 2023 are still around. And Sunday's game against the Texans was a perfect example of the Titans' incompetence. The Texans played without their left tackle, their number one receiver, their right tackle, their starting center, and it doesn't matter. Will Anderson Jr. played 12 snaps because he's dealing with an injury. The guys who dominated you in the first game 2 weeks ago, Jonathan Grenard, out. Malik Collins, out. Didn't matter. They played with a guy on the defensive line who was from the USFL, and it didn't matter. In fact, the Titans played with pretty much all of their guys on offense except for Chris Hubbard, right? Andre Dillard was their day one starting left tackle. Peter Skoronski was their day one starting left guard. Aaron Brewer was their day one starting center. Now, Brunskill got hurt in the middle of the game, and Chris Hubbard was out. But Hopkins, Burks, Okonkwo, Henry, Levis started. Tannehill came in. I mean, again, they had guys that were out too. And yet, you couldn't get a first down. I mean, I think the Titans had 11 first downs on the day. And it didn't matter. Didn't matter. By the way, their number 2 pick in the first round of this year's draft had a quarterback rating of 102.7. And their number 3 pick had 2 sacks on 12 snaps. Your 11th pick looked like an undrafted free agent again. Whether it was, there was one play down around the goal line where Skoronski was a straight turnstile and Tannehill had to throw the ball away, and if that was Levis, he would have been sacked. I mean, it was so bad. There was one where he tripped Tannehill, and Tannehill just fell to the turf like, well, I guess it is what it is. But, I mean, there wasn't much of a difference between Peter Skoronski and John Ojukwu on Sunday. So, if you're a fan of the Titans, you don't really have a choice. You can have an opinion, but you don't really have a choice, just like I don't have a choice. If you own the Titans, you have one of two choices. You can do something about it, or you can bury your head in the sand and blame John Robinson and the fake salary cap for all of your problems and just pray that better days are ahead. With the same dodos that brought you this offensive line, which is truly, and this is not hyperbole, and I think a lot of you would agree with me, the worst offensive line I've ever seen, and would make last year's offensive line, which was atrocious, look like a Mike Munchak or Russ Grimm offensive line. It was that bad. So again, those are your two choices. Your choice is to do something about it, right? Maybe go out and get people that don't think Andre Dillard is the answer to your problems. Maybe somebody that understands that guard when you've got a bunch of holes probably isn't the best first-round selection. Or you can let them get another try and just pretend that this year wasn't their fault. Just pretend that this year didn't happen. Just pretend that the salary cap is the reason why. You can do all those things. But guess what? I'm just telling you, this is not a threat. This is a promise. This is not a prediction. This is an expectation. If you don't change off of what happened this past year, you're not going to get better. You're not going to get better. You're going to be bad again. It's funny, when a team has a good coach, especially when they move off of a bad coach to a good coach, all the people around that team say coaching matters. The fan base says coaching matters. Don't think coaching matters? Go talk to the Rams and ask them what it was like when they moved on from Jeff Fisher and brought in Sean McVay. Coaching matters. But when you lose and everybody wants to believe a narrative that makes them feel better, all of a sudden coaching doesn't matter anymore. And it's this roster. There's nothing they could do with this roster. Well, what about the bad players they brought in? Well, that wasn't their fault that they brought in the bad players. What about the bad players that they chose to pay more money than they had to, like Aaron Brewer, who had a right of first refusal tender for $2.6 million, and you, because you were so afraid the rest of the league was going to take your Aaron Brewer, you decided to give him a $4.3 million tender. You basically doubled his salary because you're incompetent. What about that? Well, that wasn't their fault. I mean, you can keep doing that. That's fine. But, I mean, again, like I said, it's not a threat. It's not anger. I'm not angry. It's reality. If you bring back the same guys to do the same thing that they showed that they were incapable of doing this past offseason, you're going to get the same result. And I laugh at this all the time because when it comes to Vrabel and Carthon are both the problem. And I have problems with both of them. But when it comes to, the coach versus the GM, or I think that you guys are looking at it separate. I heard Joe talking about this today when he said, well, I think they're on a different timeline. Why? Because Vrabel had been here before? But we didn't blame Vrabel for any of the losing last year. We blamed John Robinson for the losing last year. So if that wasn't Vrabel's fault, why is it Vrabel's fault now and it's not Rand Carthon's fault? And that's the stuff that doesn't make any sense. And again, I mean, when we talk about Vrabel, there's a sense that the players he has, they're not good enough. And then when we talk about Rand, it's, this is a bad roster. Right, but it's a roster he made worse. You know what's crazy about all of this? I looked it up yesterday. When John Robinson got fired, the day that many of you championed, and the day that, again, I keep looking back on, and I think that was the day when ownership went crazy and set into motion just how terrible this season and everything else was going to be. When that happened, you were 7-5 and in first place of the division. In fact, you had a 95% chance to win your third straight division title. The Texans were 1-10-1. They were 1-10-1. So how did they get better? But you can't. Somebody explain that to me. How can the Rams have a fall off after their Super Bowl team in 2021, have to completely fix their offensive line on the fly, do it with no draft picks? You know, you've missed on your draft picks. They've chosen not to have draft picks. And here they are back in the playoffs. And you can't just block a simple rush. Somebody explain that to me. And some people blame the offensive line coach or the offensive coordinator, and they demand new ones. And I would say to that, Vrabel just replaced the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, and those are the guys he picked. So why would we give Vrabel another chance at that? And then when it comes to the offensive line and the players on it, some people say it's not about the coaching, it's about the players. Have you seen the 11th overall draft choice? He's terrible right now. Andre Dillard gets benched every other game because then they put in Jalen Duncan, who's equally as bad, and then they have to bench him. So I want to give these guys more draft choices and more money, and a lot of you do. And so all I'm saying, all that's going to happen if you do, and because I want to be fully transparent here, it's not 100% sure, but I'd say 95. I'll give you 5% that these guys can take their heads out of their asses and put together a good football team for next year. Again, 5% is not very high. But I'm just telling you, the idea that they're going to turn around and fix this, based off of what? Other than putting your head in the sand and saying, John Robinson, John Robinson, John Robinson, I don't really know what there is to bank on with this group. So if you don't want to be embarrassed the way you were embarrassed on Sunday and the way you will be embarrassed this coming Sunday against Jacksonville, that game's already decided you're going to lose. If you don't want to be embarrassed in those games, you're going to have to do something about it. If not, then enjoy next year. But I will just tell you right now that I am going to take everything with a huge grain of salt, and I'm just going to roll my eyes at every stupid decision they make, like tendering Aaron Brewer with a second-round contract. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting today. 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, we will get to that as we always do. Again, at 615-737-1025. And I just want to know the answer to this. I want somebody to explain to me. If you were 7-5 the day that John Robinson got fired, the Texans were 1-10-1. How is what happened on Sunday still John Robinson's fault? We'll get into that coming up next. Stillman and Company, live from Bridgestone Arena, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
And Levis is hammered. The ball's out. Titans, Sheldon Rankins will get a Texan touchdown. Jerry Hughes knocked it loose from the Titans quarterback, and Rankins ran it in.
Jerry Hughes in his 14th season out of TCU is going to be working on right tackle John Ojukwu. You see him right here on the edge. He just uses that speed, works all the way around. 14th year in the league. You see that little rip move. He's able to get around Ojukwu, knock that ball out. Rankin's able to pick it up, take it in for 6.
Jerry Hughes versus John Ojukwu, and John Ojukwu loses. And the only reason that I remember who John Ojukwu is because at the beginning of the year, Ian, you remember this, I asked Mike Vrabel before the start of training camp, I said, how nervous are you about the offensive line? And Vrabel gave me this whole, I'm not nervous, I'm excited to coach them. And he went over all the options and said, we've got this guy and this guy and this guy and OJ. And do you remember my reaction when he said that?
Who's OJ?
I was like, OJ? It's like, who's OJ? You've never heard of OJ before? That's OJ. Got your quarterback hurt and gave up a touchdown, and it's not OJ's fault. So I have one question, and then we'll get to your phones at 615-737-1025 today, which is this. Can somebody explain to me how this is all John Robinson's fault? I keep hearing it. Every time somebody drops a pass, it's Robinson's fault. Every time somebody misses a block, it's Robinson's fault. Like it's John Robinson's fault that he got fired and didn't hand Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel the Cowboys roster. How dare he do that? Guess what? If he had the Cowboys roster, he'd still have a job. Most of the time, these general managers take over teams that aren't very good. That's how they get the job. Like, are fired general managers supposed to be handing over Super Bowl caliber teams? And what's crazy, again, about the blame John Robinson culture, which I think is complete bullcrap, is that last year's offensive line, which played a starring role in him getting fired, along with the trade of A.J. Brown, which, by the way, A.J. is causing all kinds of problems now in Philadelphia. But the offensive line that was so bad, so horrific last year, was substantially better than the offensive line by any metric that the Titans have put out there this year. One of the reasons why the Titans fired John Robinson, according to TD at the time, was that they were mad about Farley and Radens. Radens might be their best offensive lineman the second half of this season. I am dead serious saying that with a straight face, and he still's not very good. So how's this his fault? And I know you guys will point to the salary cap. But even if you are pointing to the cap, Jared, what could they have done about the cap? Just know this. I looked it up today. According to overthecap.com, on February 26th, so this is before the start of free agency, you had the 12th most cap space in the NFL, ahead of Denver, who added 2 top-of-the-market offensive linemen, ahead of Kansas City, that signed 2 starting tackles, and ahead of the Rams, who were $14.87 million over the cap and have rebounded and become a good football team again. And I'm sure you'll bitch about the Chiefs' offensive line and say it's not as good as it used to be. You're right, but it's better than yours. I'm sure you'll complain about how the Broncos aren't in the playoffs, so who cares? Guess what? It's better than yours. They're better than you are. I talked to somebody last week. You know, I keep bringing up the Mike McGlinchey thing because everybody's decided that Mike McGlinchey wasn't good enough to play here for whatever reason they've decided that to be. And you'd rather have John Ojukwu out there at right tackle or right tight end tackle or whatever position it is getting your quarterback hurt because you guys don't think Mike McGlinchey's good enough. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday or last week that I would say would know. And they told me Titans weren't even interested in discussing Mike McGlinchey. Right? It's not like hey, would you be interested in McGlinchey? Well, you know, how much are you talking about? It was, nope, not interested. And I'm going to tell you why. I mean, again, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel pretty confident. I'm going to tell you why. Ian, I'm going to tell you why the Titans probably had no interest in Mike McGlinchey.
Why?
We're good at right tackle. We have Nicholas Petit-Frere.
PT? Think they were banking on PT?
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he wasn't. I guess he flashed a little bit last year, but.
I mean, remember when Coach Shoup was coming on the show, Coach Shoup was like, I'd bring in somebody to compete with him at right tackle.
Well, he's a third-round pick, so they might have just said, hey, we'll go with it.
That's the problem. That's the problem. There was too much, well, we'll just go with it. There was too much of that where a guy was drafted. What was the biggest selling point about Andre Dillard? Well, he was a first-round pick. Okay. And so was Isaiah Wilson. You want to put him at left tackle? I mean, that's the problem. And again, everybody wants to tell me that this is all John Robinson's fault. Again, you want to bury your head in the sand. You want to pretend that your team is going to be on the right path and that this time next year we'll look back at this season and we'll say, that was a terrible year, but we had to go through the storm in order to get to where we needed to be. And I'm telling you, if the same guys that don't want to have a conversation with Mike McGlinchey because they're convinced they've got Nicholas Petit-Frere, if those guys are still running this thing, it's going to stay bad. That's all I'm saying. You can complain about Robinson all you want. The A.J. Brown trade has absolutely blown up in his face. It also might get Nick Sirianni fired out in Philadelphia. But this is not what you saw Sunday. That's not his fault. That's not his fault. And I hear people that tell me that, oh, no, this is too much to get better in 1 year. Did you see Jacksonville 2 years ago? Too much. There's just not enough resources to get better in 1 year. Didn't stop Jacksonville from making it to the divisional round of the playoffs a year after they were picking number 1 in the draft. Okay? After the Urban Meyer debacle. Best thing that ever happened to Jacksonville, and you know it, was getting rid of Urban Meyer. They realized Urban Meyer is incompetent, and they kicked his ass out the door. That's what's going on here. Just with a little bit more class and a little bit more manners. I love this. Ian, if you could, Sunday Tannehill was talking after the game, and I did laugh. Tannehill's always kind of polished the turd a little bit. Now, sometimes it was him that was dropping them over the years. But Tannehill has always done a good job to polish the turd and never blame anybody and never point a finger and at this point, Tannehill's kind of like, nah, screw it.
Some occasions there where you've got no chance?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, definitely. There are times when I have no chance. Have you seen this offensive line? And people are going to get mad about this. I actually think Tannehill played pretty well on Sunday. I think all things considered, I thought Tannehill played pretty well. And that's saying something because you only scored 3 points. That's how bad it is. And again, it's not John Robinson is certainly a part of the issue for sure. But to act like what happened on Sunday was all John Robinson's fault is unfair to him. It is ridiculous to act that way. History will all remember it however it's supposed to play out. So your current biases now will be gone 5 years from now. Kind of like how we all look back on Mike Mularkey getting fired after winning. And it's like, man, why did they do that? But you will remember John Robinson a lot more fondly than you're going to remember what's going on right now. And I'm just telling you that, you can believe whatever you want to believe now, but that is what will happen. 615-737-1025. I promised phones. Phones are coming up. 615-737-1025. Again, we are live today out here at Bridgestone Arena. And for everybody that's been making the argument in support of Vrabel's coaching, Sunday certainly left something out there for people to be concerned about. We'll get to that. Hey, make your Silly Underdog picks for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at theGameNashville.com or the 102.5 The Game app. Silly Underdog Picks is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. And tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home facing Reinhardt with pregame at 6, tip-off at 6:30. And coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3ClassicHits.com. And tune in to 94.9 The Fan Thursday night for Vandy women's basketball. By the way, Vandy's women's basketball team has been kicking some straight ass. I just going to throw that out there. Not that, whatever, but they have been kicking some straight ass. The Commodores will be on the road taking on Sam Purcell and Mississippi State. Tip-off at 6:30, pregame at 6:15. And coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com.
We didn't finish. There were some mistakes. Would have liked to have the early shot, and then we have a penalty that, on a conversion, we knew and we had practiced about, move and hop around on third down, and a little just disappointing that we aren't set, and then being able to move one of our better players around to help them help us get a conversion. So, it's a penalty there. We're not set. Then can't. We have the touchdown, the fumble return. Can't protect the quarterback, and then just not scoring down there inside the red zone. So there were some, obviously some things that weren't, very good. There'll probably be some better plays once we have a chance to look at it, but then it's just not complimentary enough. The penalty, we get a stop and then a penalty, give them the ball back. So it's hard to play any game when you're not complimenting each other and there's just mistakes.
Hey, that was Vrabel. The silver lining might be, well, there may be some good plays when we go and look at the tape. You know what I laugh at, too, by the way? Everyone's like, well, I got to look at the tape. That is the oldest excuse in the book. When they have those iPads on the sideline, they're not ordering DoorDash, okay? They're looking at the tape right there on the sideline. Now, years ago, they used to have the pictures, and I can understand that. Well, I got to watch tape. Now, what's that iPad you got right there? What's that doing? Anything? So get that out of here. But Vrabel went over all the mistakes they made. And I'll say this. A lot of people were saying, well, in defense of Vrabel, they're still playing hard, Jared. They're still competitive. And I'm like, yes, competitive against the Texans junior varsity team. Is that what we're shooting for around here? Competitive with the JV team? Because that's the competitive. Now, I'm not going to get on Vrabel for all the little mistakes that happened on Sunday that, quite frankly, cost you a game. Caleb Murphy hits the punter. First down Texans, touchdown Texans. It now went from 3-0 with decent field position for you to 10-0 Houston. Levis gets knocked out on the next play. It's 17-0 and the game's over. Treylon Burks has the ball hit him right in the hands and he drops it. DeAndre Hopkins gets called for a penalty. He's probably too busy getting his hair cut to focus on when he was supposed to be able to take off at the snap. That's coaching. That's not John Robinson's fault that Caleb Murphy hit the punter on Sunday that resulted in a Houston touchdown. Okay? So coaching is certainly not out of the question. And I heard today Joe talking about, I don't think this is a coaching thing. I think this is a roster thing. I remember when Ken Wisenhunt got fired. And at that point in time, nobody was saying, well, the roster sucks, so give him a pass. Why? Wisenhunt, I think that first year might have been a little in charge of the roster, and then they got Tommy Smith's butt out of there. But I do believe that Rustin Webster was the general manager of those teams, and he did inherit a bad team. He just made it worse because he wasn't very good. But back then, it wasn't like, oh, no, we have to have this staunch defense. And right now, folks, we are living in the Ken Wisenhunt era. That's what we're living in right now. It's all bad. You lose every game. The games you do win are miracles that if you played it 10 times probably wouldn't happen again. If you played the Dolphins 10 times, you're not going to have that outcome. And that's, I'm just tired of the excuse making, and I'm tired of the sacred cowism, and I'm tired of everybody sticking their heads in the sand, and then this Texans game happens where the Titans can't get a veteran player not to be in motion at the snap. It's same old stuff. And if you don't do anything to change it, it's going to stay the same. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I did promise phone, so let's go to him. Ralph has been waiting patiently and is up next. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Ralph?
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Ralph.
Okay, I called him the show with Kowalski and Joe. I told them as long as this city have losing mindset like your guys, this city never going to have a championship teams. And my concern now is about this new quarterback. I believe this team is going to ruin him with this bad team and roster because it's going to take a miracle to get this team back on the standing.
Yeah, thank you for your call, Ralph. I'll say this about Levis. I'm a little worried about the injury thing. And again, Levis never started in college until he got to Kentucky. He played the 2021 season totally healthy. Good. He was hurt all of last year. The toe, the shoulder, I think like the elbow might have been an issue, something like that. I mean, it was like Steve McNair when back in the days they would put up like the skeleton picture of McNair, and it'd be like, right here, he hurt his head, he hurt his cheekbones, he hurt his jaw, he hurt his neck, he hurt both shoulders, he's hurt his sternum, he's hurt his appendix, his spleen, he's hurt his quads, he's hurt his calves, he's hurt his hamstrings, he's like everything, there was like a dot on McNair. And it feels like that's what's starting to happen to Levis. Now, a lot of this is the bad protection. It's like, it was inevitable that Tannehill was. I said after the second game, I said, look, he can't do 15 more of these. And he couldn't. Then they put Levis in there, and they get him hurt. And see, now, again, I know people, and this is a minor detail, but I would be interested in bringing Tannehill back if I were the Titans, just because I feel like it's inevitable that I'm going to need my backup quarterback next year. And I don't know if Tannehill's going to get a starting job on the market. I think we all just assume there will be a starting job for Tannehill. I'm trying to figure out where. If Arthur Smith keeps his job, that would make sense. But at the same time, Arthur Smith has already played that. Well, he was good with me at the Titans card when he brought in Mariota. So I don't know if he'd be able to do that again. But I am worried about Levis's ability to stay healthy, and I am absolutely worried about their ability to protect Will Levis. Sean texts into the text line and says, remember the reports from the Combine saying the Titans would not be spenders in the offseason? The cap has to be a factor if ownership won't open their wallets. Well, first of all, the salary cap and ownership opening their wallets are two totally different things. Secondly, I do love Ian. Remember the reports from the Combine saying the Titans wouldn't be spenders in the offseason?
Well, I think you had heard that.
It was me who said that. And I was right. And what's crazy, too, for all you cap people out there, this idea of, well, that's all they could do at the time was Andre Dillard. Unless Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel are so smart, and I'm trying to find the evidence that would point in that direction, unless Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel are so smart that they not only could see ahead of time exactly how much money they'd have to spend, but exactly how much money they'd have to save in order to give DeAndre Hopkins $13 million or whatever it was, knowing that he would be released, knowing that they wouldn't have to trade for him, knowing that nobody else would want to pay him. If they were that smart, then why couldn't they have done better than Andre Dillard? The truth is, the Titans were probably given a budget of money that they could spend. The Titans probably spent it, and what they did spend, they did not spend appropriately. $4.3 million is not appropriate for Aaron Brewer, and Aaron Brewer is not appropriate for the starting center position. It's as simple as that. So, whatever they were given, they were probably given. And then when DeAndre was out there, they probably went to the owner and said, can we please sign DeAndre? I highly doubt that the Titans had a budget and that the Titans left just enough room of $13 million in their budget to sign DeAndre Hopkins. But you're going to tell me the cap is why they couldn't sign anybody better? Please. None of that adds up. And none of that makes sense. And a lot of you people, I feel like a lot of you people are smarter than that. Texter says, my dream coaching staff, Ben Johnson is head coach, Arthur Smith is offensive coordinator, and anyone else is DC. Arthur Smith is not going to be your offensive coordinator if Ben Johnson's your head coach. If Ben Johnson's the head coach, Ben Johnson's the offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson is calling the plays. Now, I will say this. I do like Slowick. I mean, when I watch the Titans play the Texans the 2 times this year, I see guys open all the freaking time. When they played the Buccaneers, I saw Bobby Slowick put C.J. Stroud in just the perfect position to succeed. That first game against the Titans, he realized at the end of the first half, after they were running it, that the Titans couldn't stop it up the middle. And instead of, well, we spent all week working on these plays, we need to be able to run the secret double, triple reverse pass. Instead of that, he's like, let's just run the ball up the freaking middle. And so how would that translate to head coach? Yeah, but that's where the game's headed with the offensive guys. I do like Bobby Slowick. Texter says, You can coach it as much as you want, but the players have to execute. It's on the players. What else can a coach do? Oh, and you give Vrabel a pass. I think this guy's being sarcastic. It says, you give Vrabel a pass because he can take you to the AFC Championship game with a solid roster. He's nothing like Wizen. I have no idea if this guy's being serious or not. Because the guy, so this is Ryan in Nashville, texted in at 2:18 with Vrabel is to blame, Carthon too. But realize this, they coach the players not to make mistakes, and the players continue to do so. Okay, this is going to be the standard operating line for the rest of time. The coach does not get on the field and play. The coach does not get on the field in football. They do not get on the court in basketball. They do not get on the ice in hockey. They do not get on the diamond in baseball. The coach never gets into the area of competition, whatever you want to call it. The only job that a coach has is to get the players in the right spot and to get them to do the right thing. That is the only job that they have. Now, there's a little, this is extremely macro. We can go micro and say, it's the coach's job to get the players of this and that. But again, the big picture, it is the coach's job to get the players to do what it will take for them to win. I don't care what sport it is. Bill Belichick used to say, either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. I'm sure Craig Aukerman didn't coach them to get the punt blocked. But either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. Paul Sandiford, who's a Hall of Fame women's coach, and a real good guy, by the way. Paul Sandiford used to say, it's not what you know, it's what you can get them to do. So quit this, it's on the players stuff. If it's on the players, then it's never on the coach, and no coach should be fired. Except what Mike McCarthy did at the end of that Cowboys game. Holy crap. 615-737-1025. More your phones. Plus, I think somebody on the Titans may have punched a ticket of doubt. There was this, we probably can't go any further. We'll get to that coming up next. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. I love Window Nation. You want to know why? Because I am a complete and total moron when it comes to anything window related. I mean, I didn't even know that, hey, you can save some serious cash when it comes to your windows, especially in a city like Nashville where it's really, really hot one day and then it's cold the next day. And it's like, well, if the sun comes out on this day, then it's going to be burning up. And if the sun goes down at 5 o'clock, then oh my God. So let Window Nation take good care of you and your home. For a limited time, Window Nation is offering buy two, get two windows free. And the goal at Window Nation is to help everyone find the perfect windows, slidings, and doors for your home. Window Nation's team will go above and beyond to ensure that you have the best possible experience. And so they've got a 3-step process, a free consultation where their designers come out and they'll figure out what we're going to do with the windows, then the window design and installation, and then the 3rd step, love your new windows. Love them. And then they still have Window Nation's customer care center that will continue to take good care of you. Call them anytime with questions. So if you're looking, and again, you heard me earlier say that for a limited time, buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free with Window Nation. If you're looking to get started, call Window Nation today or visit windownation.com.
after the 4-yard pickup fake, and Levis well protected and going deep. Treylon Burks can't hang on inside the 20 of Houston.
Oh, he's going to wish he had that one back. I mean, you don't get so many of these big shot opportunities, and they talked about getting Treylon Burks involved early. Just got to make that catch. I think he just has to track that one a little bit better. Perfectly placed.
I did feel bad for Vrabel. I did feel bad for Rand Carthon. I did feel bad for Will Levis, and I did feel bad for Treylon Burks on that second play of the game where they dial one up, and Tim Kelly add him to the list. They dial one up. Burks has just perfect positioning. The ball is placed right there on the tippies, and he drops it. And I was kind of already there with Burks, but I do feel like this latest measure probably confirms it. This is probably the moment of truth. I don't think the Titans can go into next year with the anticipation of Treylon Burks really being anything, okay? Like, I think he's cemented for me where he stands. He is not to be counted on going into next year. So when we start looking at the roster and we get into draft season, which a bunch of you already want to go full bore into right now, and yay, losing is fun because we can draft well at whatever. So you, I guess, get another guard who's not even any good. But before we do all of that, like when we do get into that and we do start talking about, okay, you know, they're going to need this and they're going to need that and they're going to be, it will be very convenient. Like Chig's going to be a good example of this. It'll be very convenient to convince yourself that you've got a position taken care of when in fact you do not. Chig's not a starting tight end in the NFL. It'll be very convenient. Burks is absolutely not allowed to be in the discussion when we're talking about this team and what they have and don't have. I think it would be in his best interest and maybe the Titans' best interest to find a change of scenery for him. You know, Jamison Williams has started to catch the ball, so my dream of him going for Burks to Detroit is out the window. But there will be guys out there, and maybe that change of scenery for Burks, it'll be another guy that needs a change of scenery, or it'll be a 6th-round pick, kind of the way the Eagles got rid of Jalen Reagor when they realized he wasn't very good. Like, that may be what's best for him. Now, if he stays on the team as a number 3 or 4 receiver and goes into next year and he plays great and he becomes a number 1 or number 2 receiver, all right. But, I mean, you can't expect it anymore. And it's frustrating because he's got so much ability. But between the injuries and the confidence and the drops and he's not very good. So I wouldn't cut him or anything like that. There's no reason to. He's not a bad guy. He's not bad in the locker room. He's got a guaranteed salary, and it's a rookie salary or whatever. There's no reason to cut Burks. But as far as, again, going into 2024, I mean, he was on the cover of the team yearbook this year with Hopkins and Simmons and Tannehill and Henry and Byard. He was on the cover, him and Chig. I am not going into next year with Burks in that spot. And I tell you, those are game-changing plays. Those are game-changing plays one way or another, and Burks couldn't make it. Texter into the text line says, despite your 12-game win prediction in July, I'm glad you are finally giving an accurate assessment of the Titans roster, although everyone else saw how bad this team was in July. I have a hard time believing that everybody else before the start of training camp thought that Andre Dillard was going to be not just worse than Dennis Daly, but significantly worse than Dennis Daly. I mean, Dennis Daly doesn't look too bad compared to what we've had to watch at left tackle. I mean, I tweeted this out on Sunday during the game. Floyd used to say this, Ian, I don't know if you remember this, but he used to always talk about, well, then you're just swapping spit, is what he used to say.
Yeah.
When they keep switching around with Dillard and Duncan at left tackle, they just swap and spit. I mean, that's all they're doing. And they asked Vrabel to explain it, and he came up with some fakakta answer today that was like, well, you know, Jalen gets the reps and Dre does some good thing. I mean, I don't even want to paraphrase it because I don't remember it. It was just total bullcrap. It was, he puts a guy out there, then the guy fails so many times that he can't watch it anymore. So then he puts the other guy in there, And so then, hoping that maybe the other guy will do a little bit better. And then the other guy will go out there. And then once he gets tired of watching him, he'll go back and put the other guy in there. God forbid they take the left guard who they drafted with the 11th overall pick, who was a first-team All-American left tackle, and see if he can play the position. Because right now, he can't play guard. I mean, I love it. People will tweet me every time Skoronski screws up, which is once every other drive. And these are big screw-ups. I mean, Skoronski is getting Tannehill killed out there. These are big screw-ups. And about once every other drive, Skoronski will get turnstiled. I mean, he makes Chance Warmack look like Bruce Matthews. He'll get turnstiled, and I'll tweet out something about Skoronski because, again, when you're picked 11th, you're not supposed to be good down the road. That's a quarterback who's supposed to be good down the road. When you're a guard and you're picked 11th, you got to be good today. He's not good. Could he develop into being good? I guess. I don't know, but he's not good right now. But again, every time I do that, everyone's like, he's the best offensive lineman on the team. And I should tell you this right now. And you're not going to want to hear this. He is not the best offensive lineman on the Titans right now. You know who the best offensive lineman on the Titans is? Ian, you want to take a guess as to right now?
Dylan Radins.
Dylan Radins, best offensive lineman on the Tennessee Titans. And that says more about the Tennessee Titans than it does about Dylan Radins. That's how bad it is. So, pardon me for thinking that the Titans were going to have a better offensive line than that offensive line they had last year. It's truly all-time bad. And the one thing where I will give myself credit is I walked out of the third practice before they even wore pads. And I was like, this offensive line is horrible. And they tried to give me every excuse in the book about how it takes time for the line to come together and they'll play better once they put pads on. And, they just need to get physical. And when Nicholas Petit-Frere comes back, it'll be... I didn't buy it like, oh, yeah, you're right. It just takes time. I was open to the possibility that what I was watching was, well, maybe they need just a little bit of time to see what happens with the pads. And no, sir. I mean, and I talked about this on the pregame show some, which is a question that I'm glad I didn't go to Vrabel's press conference today because really all the questions that I have will be asked next Monday. And Vrabel was in no mood to talk about evaluations or reflections or anything like that. He was like, we want to talk about the Jags game. Okay. So, but 2 years ago, they found themselves in a similar situation at right tackle. They signed Kendall Lamb, and they drafted Dylan Radins. And they got out there immediately and knew that those guys couldn't play right tackle. And by the third day of training camp, they had switched it out, and they were putting Sam Brilo out there and Quessenberry out there, and finally David Quessenberry got locked in. Why didn't they do that this year with Dillard? Why didn't they realize 3 days into training camp after Arden Key ran right by him on every play of OTAs? Why did they not realize they had a problem? 2 years ago they were willing to do that, but they weren't willing to do that this year? And I'd like to know the answer to that. And I don't have an assumption of what the answer is. I don't know. But I'd like to know. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Another report has come out about the commission. And it comes from a source that has been right before and is connected in the NFL. We'll get to that coming up next. Hey, join me, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason for our final award-winning pregame show of the year, Teddy's Tavern, 9:30 to 11:30 on Sunday for the award-winning pregame show. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Stillman and Company, presented by Jarrett Companies, live here at Bridgestone Arena, 102.5, 106.3. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Again, Happy New Year, and happy to have Jarrett Companies as our proud new presenting sponsor of the Stillman and Company program. So yesterday, as I was enjoying my New Year, I hope a lot of you were enjoying your New Year as well. I had some football on. I was just all of a sudden on Twitter. There was this big Titans story about Mike Lombardi. And I said, ooh, goody. Let's see what Mike Lombardi said. Mike Lombardi, former NFL general manager. I think he was a GM in 2 stops. And he used to work with Belichick all the time. And I will say this. Floyd was not a humongous Mike Lombardi fan. Though they were friendly, every time Lombardi wrote something, Floyd would say, okay, Mike. But we should remember, Mike Lombardi was the one who reported, just off secondhand gossip, that the Titans had asked Kevin Byard to take a pay cut, and he wasn't sure if he was going to take it, which led to me doing the digging that led to it blowing up, which ultimately led to an entire offseason of drama that they didn't need, and the eventual trade and fallout from that, with which Rand Carthon has never spoken about. So this was Mike Lombardi on his podcast, the GM Shuffle, talking about the Titans, and as we like to call it around here, the commission with Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel.
This team is bad. This offensive line is atrocious. They really have some real issues. And the issues are, how good are they in the front office? And is Carthon and Vrabel going to be able to coexist together? I think that's got to be something talked about. They want to keep Vrabel, but I think Vrabel's not happy with the setup that he has.
Okay. Lombardi, again, secondhand gossip, and clearly this isn't Vrabel going to Lombardi and saying, hey, Mike, do me a solid and say this, because in that cut that wasn't included was Lombardi saying that this was the last year of Vrabel's contract, to which point everybody said, wait a minute, did he just sign a contract extension? And Lombardi later took to Twitter and said, I misspoke on that it wasn't the last year of his contract. So I actually think that that's more authentic than like when Diana Rossini or Paul Kaharski report something where it's like Vrabel probably went right to them and said, report this, right? So when it comes to Lombardi, I think this is the straight gossip that he's hearing, and he's hearing from connected people. And again, where's he connected to? New England. And now this is the third person that has some sort of New England connection that has said Mike Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon. The third person. The first was Ben Volen in the Boston Globe. The second was Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal. And the third is Mike Lombardi. Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon. Tell me something that I don't know. See, we've developed this society where people only believe things that they want to believe. Where if they hear something that, again, could be plausible, but not the narrative that they want to believe, they just get mad at the messenger. They'll say Lombardi doesn't know what he's talking about, and they'll say, what does Lombardi know? And everybody in New England, they're making stuff up, and there is probably some of that for sure. But when the same thing keeps being said over and over and over again by different people, specifically Lombardi, who's not a media guy, who is a football guy, I think it's probably pretty likely that it's true. And another reason why I don't think it's an accident that it came from somebody who's got a connection to New England is because when did all of this start? When did all of this Vrabel versus Rand Carthon stuff start? When Vrabel went to Foxborough. It's almost like Mike Vrabel went up to the Hall of Fame weekend with the Patriots and complained about Rand Carthon like he was Tony Soprano talking to Dr. Melfi. Like, that's where I feel like we're at. And it just keeps coming and coming. And remember, when he got back, they had the bye week. He gets back from Foxborough. What happened on that Wednesday? Ian Rappaport reported that Will Levis was going to start, and Vrabel got really mad about it, and Fitz and Charles Robinson came out and said there are sources in that building and the coaching staff that are mad that got out. So I'm convinced, again, just with my own opinion and everything, I'm convinced Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon. He doesn't believe in Rand Carthon. And he knows that if he keeps trying to run this commission, it's going to run him out of a job. That's why Lombardi's saying, like, Vrabel doesn't know if he wants to go back, or the Titans want Vrabel back, but Vrabel doesn't like. That's what he's talking about. And I get it. And the reason why I get it, and I'm not absolving Vrabel of any blame with this, because Mike Vrabel absolutely is culpable in why this team is what they are right now. But I think a big part of this is the entire Rand Carthon process and Rand Carthon's actions as general manager have defined incompetence. See, I don't think very much of Rand as a football guy, and I don't just mean in the players with which he picks. Because, again, I don't even know that he does pick the players. I was talking to somebody today about, if Rand Carthon had a press conference, what's the first question that you would ask? The first question I would ask would be, what do you do? Like, serious question. What does Rand Carthon do? Ian, what does Rand Carthon do?
Well, from what I gathered, him and his staff gather players or intel on players that he think might be a good fit for Vrabel.
Okay, and then you think Vrabel picks him?
I don't know. I don't know that part. But that's kind of what I got the feel from what Vrabel, or what Carthon likes to say his job is. Mm-hmm. Is, identify him and his staff, identify players that fit what the coaches want.
And remember what Diana Rossini, who again is Vrabel's handpicked insider, remember what she said on Robbie and Joe right at the trade deadline, which was Rand Carthon's the one that manages the roster. So what does he do? Do you know? We don't know. Nobody knows. I don't know what he does. I think that's kind of important, right? To know what the GM does. That is if we want to take this seriously. But I go back to just like the little stuff with Rand, right? Like the fact that he does this sit down with TD and he and Vrabel to tell us that everything is fine between the two of them. And then I go and I look at the comments that he made to TD 10 months in to his relationship with Mike Vrabel, and they're the exact same as what he said at his introductory press conference when he didn't know Mike Vrabel from a jar of Vicks. And that kind of shtick rubs off on people, especially when they are no-nonsense, direct-to-the-point people, which is what Mike Vrabel is. So I get it. I totally get it. And I think it was funny because in that same piece, Vrabel made a comment about like, yeah, we have our disagreements and then we try to work it out and move on. And Chad Withrow came on this show and I thought made a great point when he said, well, what are the disagreements, right? If the disagreement is, well, you want Colton Dowell for the last spot at wide receiver and I want Trayshawn Harrison for the last spot at wide receiver, that's one thing. If the disagreement is you want Will Levis at quarterback and I don't want Will Levis at quarterback, that's a pretty big issue. And so the more reporting that comes out that Vrabel and Carthon, that Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon, the more I think it's probably true. And again, this guy has been right about the single biggest storyline for the Titans of the offseason, which was Kevin Byard. This guy is connected in the league. So don't get mad at the messenger and say, oh, Lombardi, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Vrabel and Rand kiss each other on the way out from work every day. You don't know that. Again, I don't know that it's true that Vrabel doesn't like him, but I think it's true. Again, it just feels like it's an every single day thing that Vrabel went to Foxborough and complained about Rand Carthon the entire time he was there, which is why everybody who covers the team out of Foxborough keeps telling us Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon. And not only that, I always said this from the start. When everybody kept trying to figure out what the Titans were hiding from us, when it came to who the general manager was or who had final say, right? Like, Brent Veach is the general manager in Kansas City. Andy Reid has final say. John Schneider is the general manager in Seattle. Pete Carroll has final say, and so on and so forth. And everybody kept wondering, well, who really has final say? And they wouldn't tell you the truth because they didn't. And I said, guys, I think that they are being honest when they say they're going to work together. Like, I think they're being honest that they had this, like, utopian idea that these two guys would hold hands and sing la, 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 and that one guy wasn't going to have more power than the other guy. To everybody else, that's freaking stupid, but I can see how you would convince yourself that that's the best way to go when the authoritarian regime of John Robinson saying we're going to draft Caleb Farley had burned you in the past. But it didn't really make a lot of sense. And I said, this will work if they win right away. Because if they win right away, it'll be a lot of pats on the tush saying, boy, we couldn't have done it without you finding these great players. And they'd say, we couldn't have done it without you coaching these great players. But if you don't win, which is infinitely more likely, then it comes to he wanted Andre Dillard. That's what it becomes. Me and my coaching staff cannot do our jobs because we didn't want to trade Kevin Byard. We wanted to draft Zay Flowers, which is what D. Mace said with direct conviction on the pregame show a couple weeks ago that Rand Carthon wanted to draft Zay Flowers. By the way, I asked Derek to follow up on that on the pregame show, and he was like, I just know it. So make of that what you will. But another report that comes out and says Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon, Vrabel may not want to come back. Again, tell me something I don't know. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Boy, Vrabel got mad at the press conference today. Got a little fired up. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Mike Sigmund need to win for a lot of reasons. Will expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry. Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Why?
It f***ing sucks. Losing. Awful. That's why I want to win.
That's why I want to win. We want to win. We don't want to almost win. That was Vrabel. Losing effing sucks. He is right. It does suck. By the way, Gentry told me this earlier today, and he said the reason why he asked it, and I don't have a problem with the question, like not even knowing the context to it. I don't have a problem with, and I don't have a problem with Vrabel's answer. You know, I mean, some people are like, yeah, you think Vrabel doesn't care? See, I never questioned whether or not Vrabel cared. I mean, I look at Vrabel on the sidelines, and it looks like he's about to throw up into a toilet. So I definitely think that he cares. That doesn't affect me one way or another. And then the people that are the anti-Vrabel crowd that say, oh, that's just performative art, I'm like, no. Vrabel's tired of losing, and he's tired of having to explain. He's tired of you people out there that think, like, oh, no, losing is good because of the draft position. Like, he hates that probably just as much as I do, if I had to guess. But Gentry said on the losing sucks answer, he was following up on Vrabel saying earlier that they need to win for a lot of reasons, which was odd, and I was wondering what he meant. I think that's probably a fair point. But Vrabel got all mad about it or whatever, and that whole answer, which was a much longer answer in which he started rambling on about how tough it is to not win and how they want to win for the players and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't affect me one way or another. No duh, losing sucks. How do you think we feel? We can't do anything about it. You get paid. We pay. Like, how do you think we feel? We hate it too. It's embarrassing to get your ass kicked by the freaking Texans, who have been a joke for the last 6 years. Your division is terrible, and you've been out of it for 2 months. It's awful. But it doesn't, swing me one way or another. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cam has been waiting very patiently and is up next here on Stillman and Company. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Cam?
Hey, Jared. Happy New Year, buddy.
Yep, you too.
So, two things. Watching Will Anderson blow past left tackle on Sunday without any real, just blowing past him. I know you had to be watching that thinking, oh, my goodness. Number two, there's a 7-Eleven right around the corner from the stadium. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Sure.
They have a pop-up of Treylon Burks, which all the 7-Elevens do. And, I'm a fan, so I, take advantage of free memorabilia every time I can. Well, I walk in, and the pop-up has a sticker on it that says, "Take me." And I asked the cashier, and he said, man, I've been trying to give that thing away for days. If it doesn't leave tomorrow, I'm throwing it in the dumpster. Nobody wanted it. I myself did not want it. I don't want that kind of juju in my house. Thanks.
Yep, and I'll say this for Burks, man. I can't tell you if Burks is I don't think Burks is a bad player. But I can't tell you if Burks is not mentally tough enough. I can't tell you if it's the injuries. I can't tell you if it's the offensive line and he's been open enough. And I can't tell you exactly what it is that took the player that we saw glimpses of last year, whether it was the Pack. Midway through last year, there were 3 games in a row, the Packers, the Bengals, and the Eagles, where Burks played great, including the Eagles, where he caught a 25-yard touchdown pass, got knocked out for the game, and still held on to the ball, knocked out on the field. And it just feels like it's one thing after another ever since then. And I can't tell you what it is, but it just feels like it's not going to work out here. And I do think that there is a giant weight on his shoulders that he is the guy that is trying to replace A.J. Brown. That when you trade A.J. Brown for his draft pick, and then you use that pick on him, you are trading A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks. And that's what they did. And I don't know if you guys saw the headlines out of the Philadelphia Inquirer, but apparently A.J. is about to get the coach fired up there. So A.J. hates Nick Sirianni apparently because they don't throw him the ball enough. A.J. is becoming an issue so much so that I think the headline in the Philadelphia Inquirer was something like, the Eagles have a problem and it wears number 11 and it wears a headset. Basically saying A.J. and the coach are tearing the team apart. And I fully expected AJ to be an issue in Philadelphia. Because here, they lose those games, and everyone's like, well, we're still in first place, or, well, we're still in the playoffs. Well, it's all good. There in Philadelphia, it's like, what are you doing, you bum? It's just a different lifestyle. And so I fully expected that to be a thing, except I expected it last year. But here's what I've learned about AJ. AJ has to always hate somebody. That is what fuels him. So whether it was falling to the first round, that led him to that anger at the beginning, falling into the second round and having bozos like N'Keal Harry drafted ahead of him, whatever it may be that motivated him when he first got here, that was part of it. Then it became the whole AJ versus the organization because AJ wanted a new contract. So much so that it affected John Robinson to where John Robinson felt the need to trade him, and it ultimately cost him his job. But last year in Philadelphia, AJ's war was not waged with the coach or with the quarterback or with his lack of targets or whatever. It was waged here. It was I'm going to show them. Well, now he's done that. So now he's taken it to Philadelphia. And this is not they're losing and AJ's frustrated that they're losing thing. This is an AJ thing. They were winning in week 2. They were beating the crap out of the Vikings. And AJ was getting into it on the sideline with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni because Devontae Smith was getting the ball and he wasn't. That's what made him mad. And that was when they were winning. Now they're losing. Now he's mad. And I think this is, kind of part of the reason why they traded him. And yet none of it matters because Burks can't even catch the ball. And I don't know why Burks can't catch the ball. But Burks cannot catch the ball. One texter says, Vrabel for sure cares. He just can't accept his roles, yes, plural, in the catastrophic, it says devolution. Is that a word? De-evolution?
Maybe that, yeah.
Of this team, says the texter. I absolutely agree with the whole thing. Mike Vrabel is incredibly culpable for this. And I don't think that Mike Vrabel is the most culpable. I think it's the owner. Who fires a general manager in the middle of a season when you're in first place? Unless that general manager sexually harasses somebody in the office. Or the FBI comes knocking on the door and says, yeah, we found evidence that there's this ticketing money laundering scam that's going on, that, the general manager has gambling debts that he owes. And that's the kind of stuff that gets a general manager who had been to the playoffs 3 straight years, won back-to-back divisions, and was in line to win a third one. That's the kind of stuff that gets that guy fired in the middle of the year. Not, we traded away the star player and the star player beat us and spanked the goalpost, and so now we're going to fire him. So the owner gets the top billing of the blame. Ran Carthon, I say this, I don't think much of. Okay? And I'll get into that, I guess, a little bit more here. When I hear the reports that Vrabel doesn't see eye to eye with Ran Carthon, I get it. Because I find Ran Carthon to be rather unaccountable, and I don't really see a whole lot of things they've done here that make a lot of sense. That I can look at and say, you know what? That's a smart decision. Hopkins maybe. But that's about it. And so I get it. But Vrabel absolutely has bungled this football team. And who knows who's in charge? Nobody does. Who knows who picked Aaron Brewer, who is undersized at 270 pounds to be the starting center of this football team? Who knows? Who knows who drafted a guard in the first round, the 11th pick, and the guard freaking sucks right now. He's terrible right now. Who knows? And I certainly think Vrabel's at least, part of the problem, or at least worth discussing as part of the problem. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into your phones at 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. And I will say this about Ran Carthon. He does not get the benefit of the doubt anymore, at least from me. and I will tell you why. You may be giving it to him. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. That's right. And the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and my official sportsbook app. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. They've got live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. And you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And let me just say this. If we're talking about bonus bet money here, bet the Jags on Sunday. The Titans have nothing to play for other than the coach saying that it just freaking sucks to lose. But I feel like everybody around here has become accustomed to losing. So it's not like this team is afraid of, oh, no, I'm not going to be able to look in the mirror when I go home and lose. Pick the Jags. I thought maybe Vrabel had something in his juice, that would give you a good game Sunday. I was wrong. Pick the Jags. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonuses issued at non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
And it's Andrew Dillard in at that left tackle spot, in for Jalen Duncan, who's done a tremendous job today.
Tannehill's going to be sacked back at the 46. Will Anderson Jr. with his 6th sack of his pro career.
Well, you're going to see Tajay Spears. He's going to try and get a little chip action on the edge, and that's going to disrupt the block of the previously mentioned Andrew Dillard as he comes out. You have to be careful with those chips because sometimes it keeps that lineman from getting squarely on the defender. That's what happened there.
From the 45, blitz is on, and he's going to be sacked. It's Will Anderson again. Back to back with another sack.
Watch the use of the hands off of the edge as he's working again against Andrew Dillard. Smacks those hands to the inside, gets himself free, turns it on.
There you go, Andrew Dillard at left tackle. Apparently, according to the guy who didn't even know his name on the Fox broadcast, Andrew was doing a good job, and then all of a sudden, Will Anderson got 2 back-to-back sacks at the end of the first half. Will Anderson played 12 snaps on Sunday. 12. And he got 2 sacks. In fact, I think part of the reason why he played was I guess there was some record that he was trying to get or whatever. I think it was that, and I think it was like, Coach, let me suit up, let me go in there, get my sacks, because I know I'll get them against that offensive line. Let me get my sacks, and then I'll come out of the game. And I think it was a, let me suit up, and if this game is close, you know I can win it for you because, again, look at that offensive line, and you know I'll take good care of it. And then if not, I'll hang out on the sidelines and drink some Gatorade. And he got his sacks, and he got his Gatorade. So when it comes to Rand Carthon, again, the report from Mike Lombardi is that Vrabel doesn't know if he wants to come back because he doesn't like Rand Carthon, which is not the first time that we have heard that Vrabel doesn't like Rand Carthon. And one texter texts in and says something that I actually agree with. This comes from David, who says, I'm starting to think that Vrabel is just having a hard time to get along with almost anybody. It feels like a theme. And I agree with that. I think Vrabel's always going to be the guy who hates his boss or who always, it's always, and I don't want to say he's the guy it's always someone else's fault, but like if he doesn't see eye to eye with you, I don't think he's got the time or the patience for you. And I certainly think that's the case with Rand Carthon. But a lot of people are mad at me when I say that I'd move on from both of them, which I would. I would try to trade Vrabel and I'd fire Rand Carthon. And everyone's like, that's not fair. First of all, as we've said many times, the NFL is not fair. Just ask Mike Mularkey. Secondly, I don't even know what his job is. As we went over earlier this hour, what is his job? He says his job is to get with the coaches to be able to give them examples of what kind of players they want. But he always stops short when he does talk and gives that rehearsed line. He always stops short of saying whether it's his job to pick those players or not. When that 10-minute clock starts and Tennessee is on the clock and somebody says, hey, let's go with Johnson, who is it saying that? I don't know. So if you fire Vrabel and then you let Rand Carthon hire a coach and you let Rand Carthon say when that clock starts, all right, let's hire Johnson, you're promoting him. I'm not going to give him a promotion. Not with Andrew Dillard at left tackle. But I'll also just say this. I've seen enough, and I've heard enough to devise that it is more likely than not that Rand Carthon cannot do the job of a real general manager. That is a guy who picks the players, a guy who runs the coach, who hires the coach and then empowers the coach that he hired because he believes in the coach to then pick his staff and supports his coach and goes out and gets good players, but really runs the whole football operation. When it comes to general manager, we just look at draft picks. This guy wasn't very good. He must not be a very good general manager. But there's a lot more that goes into being general manager. There's a lot of general when it comes to general manager. And I don't know if Rand does a very good job of that. In fact, I think he doesn't. So when people say, I owe him the benefit of the doubt, it's like, did this season not happen? Did Andrew Dillard at left tackle? I'm joking. It's Andre, but the moron at Fox couldn't get it right. Andre Dillard, does that not, Aaron Brewer, Skoronski with the 11th overall pick, do those things not count? But that's just the personnel part of it. It's not the general manager part of it. You know, I'm one to sit there and say when I've screwed something up. When I legitimately, vehemently did it, I will say it. But have you ever heard me mention an ounce of regret when I reported that Kevin Byard asked for his release from the Titans, and then the Titans came, oh, that's not true, and that report was fake, and that was, nope. And I'll tell you why. Because I told the Titans, I said, hey, I need Ran Carthon to call me. And Ran Carthon didn't call. And I think a lot of people in the audience hear that, and they think like, oh, I got my feelings hurt, or my ego hurt, that Ran Carthon wouldn't call me. I don't care about that. But what I took away from that entire situation, where it was, hey, I need Rand to call me. Again, Rand had been on the show before. I had been at his press conference. Like, it's not my job for him to know that, hey, if Jared Stillman's asking to talk, which he's not the only one, trust me, it happens all the time. We talk to people behind the scenes, just like, hey, you know, just what, that's the job. And if he takes this job and doesn't realize, like, hey, man, if you don't call him back, he's going to go on the air at 2 o'clock and he's going to say what he has, and it may cause a humongous issue for you, which it did, that's his fault. That's not my fault. That's the general part of being a general manager. But then to just sit there and say, that was a lie and that was a, okay. Then they traded the guy anyways, and there was clearly fire where there was smoke. And that's where I took away from that he doesn't understand the general part of general manager. And that'd be one thing if it was just one rookie mistake, right? Then there was the combine. Mike Silver reports the Titans are shopping Derrick Henry. Congratulations. You went to your first combine and you walk away with some other general manager talking to the media saying they're trying to trade their most popular player and their best player. That's not a very good start. Had the whole offseason turbulence with Tannehill, whatever happened on draft night happened, which led to C.J. Stroud kicking your ass on Sunday when he was supposed to be your quarterback, but you couldn't keep your mouth shut. There are a lot of things that a general manager has to do that are just beyond, you know, was that a good fourth-round draft choice? The Kevin Byard trade. They trade him, and Rand doesn't say a peep about it. But he takes the time to sit down with TD and repeat the same things that he said at his opening press conference. So when people are saying, well, Rand deserves more time or another chance, or I'm like, did this year not happen? Like, did this year, like, did we not see a team that had a terrible offensive line? Did we not see it get worse? Because I saw it this year. And I think it's gotten worse. I think it is worse. Tristan is waiting and is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Tristan.
Yes, I would fire Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon because Mike Vrabel doesn't fire the coach, the offensive line coach he hired this offseason. He doesn't fire Shane Bowen, who the defense has gotten worse since Dan Pease left. Both of these people need to go, and we need to clean house and be like the Predators, which cleaned house this past year, and they're doing well. And so, and the offensive line, like, I love Peter Skoronski. I think he's going to be a good notch player, and don't draft that J.C.
Latham from Alabama. Yeah, we'll get into all that later. But I agree with 99% of what you said, except for the Skoronski thing, which is, I mean, again, when they drafted Skoronski, as much as I hated the fact that they took a guard with the 11th pick, I was like, okay, well, at least that's figured out, right? Like, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have picked a guard with the 11th pick, but at least that's taken care of. And I don't think we can say that. Watch the freaking games. He's terrible. Now, is that the line coach? Is that the guy? I don't know. And so I'm at the point where I agree with the caller that, hey, Vrabel can't manage the coaching staff. That is a very important job of being head coach. So if I got a general manager that I can't trust to do the general stuff, and I've got a head coach that can't manage the coaching staff, then let's just start over. And for all you people that are like, well, let's see what they do with $100 million, why not let's see what somebody else can do? Because somebody else can't do worse. Somebody else cannot do worse than what this offensive line has become this year. Cannot happen. I could pick the players, and it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. But a lot of people don't have an appetite for that. That's their business. I'm just telling you, with me, there's no more benefit of the doubt here. In fact, there is doubt, period. No benefit of the doubt. Doubt. You drafted a guard at 11. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Oh, the guard sucks? You don't have the benefit of the doubt anymore. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. A lot of you want to weigh in on this. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about Twice Daily. Twice Daily wants to send you to Italy. That's right. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app to get entered to win. Every sub is a chance to win. Every made-to-order Italian sub. Mobile-ordered Italian subs count for 2 times the entries. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more information. I've actually been watching The Sopranos a lot lately, and I really want to go to Italy, so I might have to get in on the Italian subs. Twice Daily's made-to-order offerings allow you to get exactly what you want when you want it. Customized sandwiches with your preferred meats and cheeses, and get bagels with all the fixings, and have snacks prepared for you the second you order. You make it yours, and they make it fresh. Download the Twice Daily app and join their loyalty program today to unlock special discounts, savings, and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day.
I don't want these, interactions between us to always feel like we got to take a negative turn. And, this should be a joyous moment for us to praise these kids. This is a moment these kids are going to see this, and this is a moment for them and their families to rejoice in, because it's only going to happen once. There'll be other times to critique what they've done. These kids haven't even stepped on the NFL field yet. So let's keep that in mind. This is a moment for them and their families to have something to be proud of and enjoy this moment.
If the NFL draft is the best night of their NFL career, they're not going to have a very good career.
There you go. That was draft night part 2, the Friday night. If people are wondering, how could Vrabel and Rand not be on the same page? There you go. Also, can we now critique the players like Skoronski? Billy is up next here on Stillman and Company. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Billy?
Thanks for your time, Jared. I know a lot of people are making excuses for Skoronski because I think they're afraid to admit that he might be a bust. There is a play from Sunday's game where Skoronski is pulling to the backside defensive end. I think it was Derek Barnett, and Barnett just leveled him, crushed him one-on-one in the
You're talking about where they showed the replay of, like from the Derrick Henry Wildcat snap where he's trying to pull and Barnett just crushed him and Henry gets knocked down in the backfield.
And that's one-on-one. There's no excuse for that. I mean, that just tells you he's not ready or something's not clicking for the dude, and you got to start accepting the fact that he might not be any good. And I think people just make excuses.
I completely agree. And I see how people are talking. Billy, good call. I see how people are talking about Treylon Burks right now, which this time last year was like, he just had asthma and he's going to get in shape and it's injuries and to a certain extent, I was like that too. I mean, I thought the offseason where Burks put in the work, I thought Burks was going to pop this year. But I do think we keep talking about benefit of the doubt with Rand Carthon. I think there's so much benefit of the doubt with Skoronski. And I thought Sunday's game, I truly thought Peter Skoronski was horrible. When they drafted him, I didn't like the pick because I thought they were going to play him at guard, which they did, even though they lied about it when they picked him and said, well, we're going to let him play both and then decide. And they never let him play left tackle. And Lord knows that the left tackles aren't better than him, or if they are, that is a travesty in and of itself. But he's awful. He's awful. And I've noticed this with certain players. I mention somebody stinks. Everybody, defends the player and says that I don't know what I'm talking about. Then the player keeps stinking, and then finally people like, Jared, you were right. Aaron Brewer was earlier this year. Remember when everybody kept defending him? I do. And right now with Skoronski, it's one nightmare after another. He had that one play where he got crushed. He had the play right around the goal line where on a third down, Tannehill has to throw the ball before Spears is open, where Spears isn't open because he's just got to get the ball away because he's about to get crushed because he can at least see when Skoronski gets turnstiled, which he did. And so now you have to, I think it might have been the fourth down play that he got. It was either third or fourth down there in which Tannehill just, had nothing he could have done. And they just turnstile Skoronski. And then there was the one where Skoronski got pushed back and tripped Tannehill, who was trying to hand the ball off. When you drafted 11th, you're supposed to be Quentin Nelson. You're not supposed to be some Scarbini. And that's what Dylan Radunz right now, if there was an award for the best offensive lineman of 2023 for the Tennessee Titans, Dylan Radunz would be the guy winning the award. That's how bad it is right now. Titans in Truth, Chris is up next on our program. Chris, go ahead.
First off, Happy New Year, my friend.
You too.
Thank you for taking my call. Okay. I am starting to kind of get what you're saying with Skoronski because I did give him excuses too, but yeah, he looked pretty bad yesterday, and that's saying something. And the fact that maybe for one, Dylan Radunz might be actually getting out of your dreaded doghouse is something I think is a miracle because I know once you put somebody in your doghouse, they're not getting out no matter what. But I congratulate you on Radunz, even though that's not either here or there. But the truth is, Vrabel's got to go. I think Vrabel's got to go because he is dragging this team into the ground. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about last year, too. Obviously, Vrabel is running the show. I think Vrabel
How do you know that?
show, even though they won't admit it.
Why are we making that assumption that Vrabel's running the show?
I think it's pretty obvious because, as you were talking about, when Kevin Byers got traded, usually a general manager addresses that issue and says, well, why was he traded? How come things didn't work out? Vrabel has had to take the major questions about some of the major issues and not the general manager. So that kind of gives you that thought.
Okay.
I mean, of course,
so
they're not saying
I hear what
nothing
you're saying,
to it.
Chris. I hear what you're saying. But when Amy Adams Strunk fired John Robinson, Vrabel was the one who had to answer questions about that, too. That doesn't mean it was right, and I thought that was totally unfair to Vrabel, but that was the position that he was put in. And I am of the belief that I have two separate beliefs on this, and then I'll let you continue your point, Chris. The first is I think they are on equal footing. I do, which I think is a problem in and of itself. And because of that, I think that Vrabel and Carthon had come to an agreement before the season that during the season Vrabel talks, which is why Vrabel was the one talking there. That being said, I don't think people on equal footing work. I don't think that makes any sense. And I think that whole process has to go.
And you know what? And to your point on that, if that is the case, I would be about 90% on board with the whole cleaning house with that. Now, I would venture to say give Rand another year, but at the same time, I wouldn't be too shocked if that's the case. Just throw it all away, admit that it's time for a rebuild, because they didn't do that before. They could have done that and maybe bought this a time if they said, okay, we're going to start a rebuild. We're going to start over. We're going to head in a new direction, which I don't think Vrabel will be the right guy to lead that rebuild. And Carthon is not blameless in any of this. So I get what you're saying, because if you keep them around, how is next season going to be any different?
No, I see, Chris. I think you're right on. Thank you for your call, Chris. I think you're dead on. That is my feeling. There is a fork in the road right now. We all agree where the team is right now, right? They suck. We agree. Ian, do you agree that the team sucks?
Pretty much, yep.
They suck. We all agree. There's no discussion, no need. Vrabel would probably say that if you asked him. With his new go-to, which is, and then he did some things that are pretty cool. And it's like, what does that mean? He had some plays that were pretty cool? What are we, in the 7th grade? What does that mean? But I digress. But we all know where they are right now. The question is, how do they get out of it? And I believe that that's where the fork in the road lies. And on one side of the fork are the people that are just burying their heads in the sand and saying, la, 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 John Robinson's fault. Vrabel's a great coach. Vrabel won with 91 players. It's all Robinson's fault. This roster's so bad. Vince Lombardi and Bobby Beathard and, the best of the best, they could not turn this team around, even though somehow Jacksonville was able to go from the number 1 pick to the divisional round of the playoffs in 1 year, even though Houston and Indy, who were laughing stocks last year, are actually battling for the playoffs next week. Whatever. Fine. And then there's the other side of it, like me, that is, hey, you're going to need a massive overhaul here. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but I know it's doable. So let's go and do this the right way by hiring a general manager that runs the football team and a general manager who hires a coach who runs the day-to-day, like responsible teams operate. Let's do that. And then that way there is no MGS, my guy syndrome. Oh, that my guy didn't do that. None of that. But Titans ownership can't do that. Even going back to when they hired when they hired Malarkey. John Robinson didn't want to hire him. And Malarkey screwed things up by winning too many games. And so then Robinson got a case of MGS, my guy syndrome, and he kicked Malarkey out of there and brought in Vrabel. But, I did not think at the time that was justified. And even now, I look at all the losing and all the excuse making, and I'm like, wait a minute. We fired coaches who were winning. So now it even looks bad in reverse. But again, If you just want to fire Vrabel, you're promoting Ran Carthon. You're going to hire a whole new coach and commit to a whole new coaching staff in terms of contracts and everything else. And if the team's still bad, then you'll want to fire him, and then you'll have this new coach. So somebody's getting screwed one way or another. I just assume it'd be the people that were terrible this past offseason. 615-737-1025. Who watched that college football playoff yesterday? There was one player that stood out to me when I was watching it yesterday. And this is why I want to stop, as it gets started, one of the biggest Titans draft narrative myths. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, presented by Jarrett Companies, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The game. We are presented by Jarrett Companies, commercial plumbing, HVAC division, preventative maintenance, commercial services. Jarrett Companies, above and beyond industry standards. And by the way, we are presenting Jarrett and Companies, our new show sponsor, which we're very, very excited of. From the intricate networks of plumbing in your commercial spaces to the vital HVAC systems that maintain your building's climate, your company can count on Jarrett Company's commercial plumbing and HVAC division. And we're excited that we're broadcasting live today from Bridgestone Arena, which is the new Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Visit springhillac.com. Boy, I tell you, this is a fun time to be around here. So who watched the college football playoff yesterday? Okay, everybody did. Got it. Who saw Roma Dunze, the wide receiver for Washington? Now, they got a lot of receivers, and Michael Penix was putting the football every spot like he was Greg Maddux. But I could not take my eyes off of Roma Dunze. Now, you guys know that I love Malik Neighbors out of LSU, and I know everybody loves Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. But I'm watching Roma Dunze get open. I'm watching Roma Dunze catch the ball. I'm watching Roma Dunze draw penalties. And I'm watching him play. I'm like, this guy has some serious Devontae Smith vibes to him. Like, he's really small, but he's fast, and he can make plays. And I know this. The Titans are going to be picking probably 6th or 7th or somewhere around there in the draft, which means they're going to get, unless they decide to go guard again or punter or something like that, there are going to be premium players available, right? 3 quarterbacks are probably going to go within the first 6 picks. Williams, May, and Daniels. And Penix may be making a case. But 3 quarterbacks for sure will probably be gone. Let's say you're picking 7th, right? So 6 guys go ahead of you. 3 quarterbacks. Well, I don't think you're in the market for quarterback this year, though I'm not as sold on Levis as everybody else is. I like Levis. I'm not convinced he's a franchise quarterback just yet. 3 receivers, 2 tackles. One of those guys is going to be available, right? But here's the thing that gets me. There's no guarantee with any of these players. I liked Roma Dunze last night. I watched Vince Young win the national championship for Texas. I saw how that ended up. There are no guarantees when it comes to making these picks. So when I see Titan fans sit there and say, we have to take a tackle in the first round of the draft, I want to stop everybody right here and right now. What if Roma Dunze is better than the 2 tackles? Are you going to take a tackle? Because, well, you got to have a tackle. What if when you do your homework on the tackles, you find things you don't like about them? Everybody told us Peter Skoronski was going to be Bruce Matthews. Right now, I think we might be lucky if he's Eugene Amano. These things miss. Look at Ike Ekwonu, who people were arguing should be the first overall pick in the 2022 draft. They played the Titans a month ago. I'm not convinced that Ike Ekwonu, the 6th overall pick, is better than Jalen Duncan, who was picked in the 6th round and looks like he was picked in the 6th round. So what the Titans need to do, instead of us telling the Titans who they need to draft or what position they need to draft, what I feel like the Titans need to do is the Titans need to do what every team should do, what I think most teams already do, which is they need to go ahead and say, okay, however you want to grade them, if it's out of 100, if it's out of 10, whatever. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a 9.5 out of 10. Okay. Malik Neighbors is a 9 out of 10. Roma Dunze is a 9 out of 10. Joe Alt out of Notre Dame is a 9 out of 10. Fashanu out of Penn State is a 7.5 out of 10. You're on the clock. Alt goes a pick before you. Harrison's off. So now you're picking between Neighbors, who, again, he's a 9, according to just this, again, I'm just using this as an example. He's a 9, and Fashanu's a 7.5. Am I taking the 7.5? That doesn't seem very smart. And then guess what? I have to play against the 9. See, when the Titans missed on Isaiah Wilson, where it really screwed them was not so much the, oh no, we used that first-round pick and now we have no linemen. No, where it really screwed them was the fact that Michael Pittman Jr. came off the board in the second round of the Colts. Boy, it would have been nice if you had added him. That's where it screws you, because then you have to play against the guy. And so that's where, again, I hear all these Titans fans that are telling me they have to go draft. You can't get a left tackle in free agency. You can't. And I'm like, everybody slow down. The Titans don't have to have the best left tackle in the NFL. Would it be nice if they get the best left tackle? Absolutely. I have no idea. I have not evaluated these two guys, and I don't really know how to evaluate offensive linemen. Trevor, who's going to join us later this hour, and we're going to talk about the playoff with Trevor. Trevor does. So we'll listen to him when we get closer to the draft. But I can't just sit here today, watch a football game and say, left tackle in the first round. And I think if you do that, all of a sudden you are cutting yourself off from some great players. Javon Curse wasn't the first overall pick in the draft. Okay, you can get good players later in the draft. I see these fans that are like, we need to lose, Jared. I'm like, whoa now. Like, you want to lose. That's great. I get it. You want to have a better draft position, but that doesn't mean that if you're picking 9th, you're not going to have a shot at a good player. You picked at 11th last year. You had a shot at Zay Flowers, who is a great player. You didn't take him because you had to go with a guard, which still makes no sense. But stop telling me they have to go left tackle. I also hear this when people say, well, they can't fix the offensive line in 1 year. Well, define fix, right? Russ Grimm and Mike Mularkey and John Robinson in 1 year took a line that was as bad as this one, that had Jeremiah Patasi and Byron Bell playing right tackle, one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen, and within a year added Ben Jones and drafted Jack Conklin and claimed Josh Klein off of waivers, and all of a sudden, they were pretty good. What was a weakness became a strength overnight. Was it the best line in the league? No, but that's okay. You don't need the best line in the league. You just need a better line than you have now. And that is absolutely attainable, and it is absolutely attainable without necessarily using your first-round pick on a left tackle. And I only say this because I saw Roma Dunze last night, and that dude looks like a player. Malik Neighbors looks like a player. Wide receivers are important, and you don't have them. So make of that what you will. I mean, I'm telling you right now, people that just say they need this position, well, yeah, but you can get that position. I mean, the whole key to figuring out the draft is to look at how many different, like you look at their team and you say, okay, how many different guys do we think are good players? How many different guys are great players? And how many guys are passable players or projects, right? And it's like, okay, if there are X amount of passable, like good players, not great players, but good players, and we feel like we could change one great player into 8 good players, do it. But you have to know the draft in order to be able to do that. Just to say left tackle, that doesn't make any sense to me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get to your phones at 615-737-1025 here on the program. Stillman and Company. Trevor will join us later this hour. Again, we are presented by Jarrett Companies here on Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And I don't have anything to tell the fine folks about Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
Mike Sigmund need to win for a lot of reasons. We'll expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry. Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Well,
It f***ing sucks. Losing. Awful. That's why I want to win.
Now, Gentry says that the reason he asked the question, which, I mean, I'm like, hey, I didn't have a problem with the question. I didn't have a problem with the answer. Gentry, though, says that Vrabel said earlier that there were a bunch of different reasons why they needed to win. So he's like, oh, why you need to win? Fair enough to me. Phones are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chuck has been waiting patiently and is up next on the Titans. Thank you for waiting and holding. Go ahead, Chuck. Chuck. Okay, call us back. You know the number. Travis is up next here on Stillman and Company. Go ahead, Travis.
Hey, Jared. I mean, the draft needs, yeah, you are right. We do need wide receivers, but how disappointing is Treylon Burks? I mean, come on, man. Ball hits him in the hands at least twice a game, and he can't hold on to the ball. It's infuriating. But on top of that, just the whole season in general has just been an utter disappointment. I was optimistic at the beginning of the season. You know, I was thinking like you, the offensive line couldn't be as bad as this. Jalen Duncan and Dillard is worse than Dillis Bailey, and I'll hang up and listen. This is horrible.
Yeah, I mean, everything you say has echoed a lot of thoughts that I've had. Now, on the Burks front, I mean, we can sit here and bitch about how disappointing Treylon Burks has been, or we can just acknowledge it and move on. That's where I am, which is Treylon Burks cannot be counted on next year as a starting player for the Titans. They don't have to kick him off the team or anything like that, but we can't sit here and think, okay, Treylon Burks needs to be counted on for next season. We owe it to him. We got to give him. Nah, I'm done with that. The offensive line next week is the end of the season press conference. And I don't know if it's just going to be Mike or if it's just going to be Mike and Rand. I have no idea. Somebody texted in earlier today and was like, I hope you go there and you show them and you. I'm like, look, all I want to do is ask questions that I feel like aren't really that big of secrets, but I know that they don't want to answer for whatever reason. I think they've been told never answer anything. And I go back to Andre Dillard. What did you see in Andre Dillard? What was the tape that you watched that made you think this was your answer at left tackle? At left guard, I'll ask, why are you so certain Peter can't play left tackle? And how disappointed were you with the season that Peter had? At center, you almost got to ask how much you got to weigh in order to play the position. And then, right guard and right tackle, I mean, it's just a disaster. Chuck is up next here. Thanks for calling back. What's up, Chuck?
All right, Jared, how you doing today?
Good, go ahead.
Good, I just want to give you some props, Jared. I've been listening to you, of course, most of this season, and most of the stuff you said came to fruition. You said earlier about the offensive line, the kicking game. Of course, that guy got fired. And so they may need to put you on the coaching staff. They got a lot of holes still, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm the answer to everybody's prayers, but I appreciate it, Chuck. I will say this. It's easy to sit there and say I was right about this, and I was right about this, and I was right about this, and there are certain things that I was absolutely wrong about. Like, I didn't think the line could be worse than it was last week or last year, and it was. Like, they found a way to make it worse. Now, I went crazy when they gave Aaron Brewer a second-round tender. See, I've been thinking about this because I didn't like a lot of the things that the Titans have done in the offseason. And I was like, if they do the same thing again, right? And I'll feel even more empowered this offseason to go crazy if they do something that I think is incompetent, like the giving Aaron Brewer a second-round tender or drafting a guard with the 11th pick or whatever. But I will feel like the license to be able just to go freaking nuts because they don't have the benefit of the doubt anymore, especially with me. Maybe with some of you, but not with me. But is that, like, can we really do that every day where we just yell and scream about the same thing over and over again? Where they sign some crap bum to be the starting center and make no sense as to why they signed that guy to be the center. And then for me every day to say, well, no reason in playing the games or talking about the Titans because they signed Johnny and he stinks. And I just don't know if I can do that. I mean, this is what bothers me the most about keeping the status quo with the coach and the GM. They may not be convinced of this. I am convinced that if they keep the coach and the GM, they will get the same results this year or next year in 2024 that they got in 2023. I'm convinced of it. And I don't know if I can do another 2023. I just don't know if I can do the whole holier-than-thou Vrabel after the draft saying, trust us, we'll fix receiver. Okay. That 11th pick you got certainly looks like an all-pro. Unbelievable. Texter into the text line, and again, our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Texter into the text line says, Jared, do you believe that the Titans would be better if they had an offensive-minded head coach instead of a defensive-minded coach? I ask this because it seems to me that Vrabel has been more focused on building the defense to carry the offense. They didn't draft a single player on defense this year. I mean, I don't think Vrabel's anti-offense. I just don't think Vrabel knows how to make the offense better. And I believe that the way the game is trending, offensive head coach is the right decision. Because if you've got a young quarterback and you develop the young quarterback and you've got a defensive head coach, then the offensive coordinator is getting plucked, and now you've got to hope that the defensive coach can continuously hit at the offensive coordinator position. Or you have to luck into Tom Brady. It's one or the other. And I like Levis. I don't think Levis is Tom Brady. So at that point, it's like, well, if let's just say that it works next year, that Vrabel gets his wish, everybody comes back, and because of that, then Tim Kelly gets hired as a head coach. Well, now we have to trust Vrabel to go out and hire another offensive coordinator. Do you trust Vrabel? Whereas if you hire Bobby Slowick or Ben Johnson or one of these guys, if you hire one of these gurus, they will not leave. Now, they'll have to keep hiring a defensive coordinator, but that's easy because what these offensive gurus have learned is just go get a veteran defensive coordinator that knows what they're doing. That's it. Just go get Jim Schwartz. Just go get Wade Phillips. Just go get Raheem Morris. Just go get any of these guys. Doesn't matter. Go get them. Just go get Vic Fangio. It doesn't matter. These guys will get head coach. Here's an example, right? You hire Bobby Slowick to be the head coach. Well, who's his defensive coordinator going to be, Jared? Matt Eberflus. Now, I know they said he's coming back, but let's just say he gets fired. He's the only defensive coach I can think of who's, like, seriously on the chopping block. He's your coordinator. Done. What have the Cowboys done? Dan Quinn got fired? Go. That's all you got to do. Just go get a fired defensive coach. And just say, hey, here's the defensive side of the ball. And, yes, I do think that they need an offensive-minded head coach. Texter says, would you take Michael Penix with our first-round draft choice? No, but I like Penix. Boy, I'll tell you, Penix was the freaking man. Like last night, I mean, I've seen some great quarterback performances in big games, but as far as just putting the ball on a dime every throw, I mean, goodness, Penix was awesome. Texter says, Vrabel said in October that he was, quote-unquote, confident that they could fix the offensive line. In all fairness, I asked him the question, and I said, how confident are you? It's not like I really set him up to say, well, I'm not really all that confident, Jared. I think we kind of suck. That's a little different. How about this one, Ian? LD from McMinnville texts in and says, I've been listening for 2 hours now, and I cannot come up with anything that I disagree with, so I'll just say Happy New Year.
Wow, that's from LD, huh? That's hard to do from him.
We don't get that from LD very often. In fact, we get pretty much all disagreements with LD. I will say this. I thought Tannehill played well on Sunday, all things considered, and I would not rule out bringing Tannehill back if there's not a starting job out there for Tannehill next year.
As the backup?
Well, yes. Now, he would still be making more money than Levis because Levis is on a rookie deal, but...
You think he'd want to be a backup? I guess that's like a last resort for him.
Well, if there's not a starting job out there, the other choice is to retire.
Yeah.
And he might take it. I don't know. He's made a lot of money, so I don't know.
If he wants to be a backup, yeah.
Yeah. But, again, he had made a lot of money when he came here. And when he came here, he agreed to be a backup. All right. I cannot do this for 4 hours about the Titans, yell and scream, So Trevor's going to join us, and instead of asking Trevor how bad the line is, we all know how bad it is. We're going to talk some college football with Trevor. We're going to talk about the playoff. And how about Nico? I mean, I got to tell you, I have been rather bearish over the years on the University of Tennessee Volunteers, and I am incredibly fascinated by Nico. Trevor Maddich will join us next. Window Nation, that's right. Whenever you think of windows, I want you to think Window Nation. Why do I want you to think Window Nation? Because, A, it's easy to remember, windownation.com, and because, well, right there, Window Nation is keeping 0% interest for 5 years. That's right, and right now, buy 2, get 2 free. Save up to 30% on your energy bills. Here's the thing about Window Nation. I don't know anything about windows. I know that Window Nation does. They're the experts. They are what I would call the window doctors. They know what they're doing. They've got the design team. They've got the consultants. They come out and they make it perfect for you and your home. And when you've got energy prices going up because it's getting colder outside, and then here in Nashville, it's cold one day and it's hot the next day, and let Window Nation take care of it. The average installer at Window Nation has over 16 years experience with over 20,000 windows installed. That's right, Window Nation. They are the best. That's right, Window Nation. Get them checked out today. That's Window Nation online, windownation.com. Yesterday, we got 2 entertaining games in the college football playoff semifinal, which with a bowl season that had not been so exciting, it was incredibly exciting. The Michigan-Alabama game, which I thought was kind of an ugly game, but it did have that wonderful ending. And then last night, Michael Penix Jr., Mwah. I told you guys I thought he should have won the Heisman over Jaden Daniels, and I think he maybe made a nice little case there. But Trevor Maddux joins us on the program presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, first of all, I heard you all day yesterday on ESPN Radio right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game in the studio during halftime and between games. And so I know a lot of what you thought of the games yesterday, but I want to start with this. Michigan versus Alabama. Did you think Michigan was the better team all night yesterday? Because I did.
They were absolutely the better team, and they executed the best, and they made the fewest mistakes, and they were the best coached. It was utter domination, not on the scoreboard, but it was utter domination in terms of watching the game and seeing how they played. Alabama, I can't remember seeing them be outcoached this severely on both sides of the ball. And I can't remember Alabama making so many self-destructive mistakes in a game. It was just astonishing. Now, Michigan all year long has been one of the cleanest teams in the country, where they have, among the fewest turnovers, fewest penalties, things like that. And in this game, they played like that. Alabama played like they completely freaked out and they forgot their game plan. So, even though it was a game that came down to the final play in overtime, for goodness sake, I think that Michigan was clearly the better team.
Trevor, why was Jalen Milroe struggling as much as he was last night?
I think he reverted to the September Jalen Milroe.
Yep.
We saw him grow before our eyes over the course of the season in terms of confidence and capability, in terms of recognition of what he sees down the field, and his ability to recognize coverages helped his ability to hit those intermediate throws, which are more complex than the deep throws that he's so famous for. When you throw deep, you just heave it down the field. Either your guy catches it or it's over the top of everybody. You don't need to read very much. But now if you're throwing those intermediate throws, you need to understand what the defense is doing, and you've got to have more nuance in the trajectory and velocity of your throw. And we saw him grow in those things. And as his confidence improved in recognition, his physical performance also improved, and those things fed off of each other. In this game, he kind of reverted, and I think the reason was they couldn't protect him. He was sacked 5 times in the first half, 6 times overall. He was flushed from the pocket a bunch more times, and guys weren't open down the field. Michigan did a good job of covering. Now, there were times when he had answers on some of those pressures and some of those sacks. But as the game wore on, it seemed like he kind of freaked out. And rather than have the pocket collapsing around him and finding his answer, which he did in November, he would look at the rush and try to find a way out when there was an answer running right in front of him that he could have thrown the ball too quickly. And so I think this is part of the reason why he looked like he did. And I think ultimately he was flustered by the end of the game.
Trevor, you brought up the outcoached element of Nick Saban in Alabama, and I heard you talking about this last night on the broadcast, and I wonder this. Was it bad coaching from Alabama? A lot of people are just going crazy about that final play call, or was it Michigan just having better answers for whatever it was Alabama thought they were going to throw at him? Does that make any sense, the question I'm asking?
Yeah, it does. I think I would say, let's talk about that last play call at the end of overtime separately, because there's a lot of nuance in that play call. But as far as overall, let's look at 2 aspects of it. One is that Michigan, in getting so much pressure on Milroe, did a phenomenal job of anticipating the protections and calling pressures that would attack those particular protections. And Alabama didn't have an answer. They kept on just getting beat no matter what they tried to do because Michigan was all over it. Now, you can't say that Michigan had their signals because Alabama should have known that maybe that was a possibility and they should have changed up the signals, right? Sure. And so,
and I highly doubt, Trevor, not to cut you, I highly doubt Nick Saban wasn't, weary of Michigan having their signals.
Helmet game. I think that might have been
so.
Yeah. Okay. So, but either way, either way, Michigan's defensive coordinator, their defensive brain trust, was phenomenal at calling those pressures. Now, you look on the offensive side of the ball. So Michigan's offense, over and over and over again, Michigan called plays that were sort of borderline sneaky, all legal, but I mean they were kind of devious little deceptive things that Alabama was always a step behind over and over again, where they would scheme to get one guy open and they would run off the secondary with 2 or 3 guys and somebody else would come underneath. Or here's a great example. Their first touchdown, Michigan, was a short pass, an 8-yard pass to their running back, Blake Corum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was off to the left. Well, what happened is they lined up a wide receiver and 2 tight ends to the left, Michigan did, and the receiver ran sort of a post route to draw the corner inside. The 2 tight ends ran a 2-man wall. They went inside and sort of posted up side by side, and it was a 2-man wall. So when Corum came to the left, the linebacker that was supposed to block him ran into a big pile of people, because you also have now the people that are covering those tight ends there, and Corum was wide open for days for an easy pitch and catch for the first Michigan touchdown. Now, fast forward to Michigan's final scoring drive in regulation. Michigan has to score now to send it to overtime. They have a 4th and 2. They run the exact same play, but instead of to the left, they ran it to the right. Same formation, same everything for the most part, except for Corum's path. But the same 2 tight end pick, the same influence by the outside wide receiver who were all packed in near the line. Same exact play. And Alabama got caught up in it, and Corum was wide open on the right for a catch and yards after catch to convert that 4th and 2 and continue it for that touchdown. And what was the touchdown? Well, they took a little wide receiver, Roman Wilson, and they put him in the H-back position. So where a tight end would normally be, one position out from the right tackle and then back a step, right? And then at the snap, they ran him behind the offensive line to the left and then out into the left in the end zone. It was like a 4-yard catch. It was not long. But normally Michigan would have a tight end there that's 6'5" or 6'6". This guy's 6 feet tall. And so he was hidden behind the line as he came across. And the defender who would have covered him didn't see him until he broke out at the last second at a full run. And so he was wide open for the game-tying touchdown. It was things like this that just happened over and over again, and Alabama just seemed like a sitting duck for it, and they never adjusted to it.
Trevor, I found the second game to be, I thought Michigan was the better team all last night, and Michigan won. But that game Alabama could have easily won. I felt like Washington was so clearly the better team last night against Texas, and it starts with the quarterback, Michael Penix. I thought he should have won the Heisman after the way he played against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. What did you think of Penix's performance last night?
Penix he had a Heisman performance. He was phenomenal. Their running game didn't go well. Dylan Johnson, their running back, only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. I think he was banged up for a lot of that game. And then, of course, in the final minute, he had to be helped off the field. It looked like he was in tremendous pain. So the running game didn't help. It was going to be Penix. And Penix ran a few times and got some yards, and that's good, but he wasn't going to change the game with his legs. It was arm. Texas knew that. Texas is the top sacking team in the Big 12, going up against Washington's offensive line, who's the Joe Moore winner for the best offensive line in the nation. So it was a good matchup. But I thought Texas had the edge there. And while Texas didn't sack Penix, they did pressure him a fair amount. A lot of that was up the middle, which is where you want to pressure a pocket quarterback. They hit him a few times hard as he threw. Other times they were in his face or they were flying right by him as he threw. And when he was under pressure, Penix still dropped accurate dimes to covered receivers deep down the field. It's like nothing Texas could do could slow that man down.
Michael Penix last night felt like the old adage of there's no defense for the perfect pass, and there were about 6 of those last night that I'm like, they could have had the best play call and wouldn't have mattered because of where he was putting the ball. Quickly, Trevor, I love this Rome Odunze. I know a lot of, we're talking about the Titans, we're talking about receivers, he's small, but I like him, Trevor.
Well, he kind of looks small, but he's actually 6'3", about 215. Rome Odunze is a pretty big dude.
We'll see in 2 months if he's really that.
Okay, we'll see. Well, maybe they fudged that a little bit. The thing is, he is brilliant, and his speed is legendary. But what makes him brilliant is his ability to track the ball while he is manipulating the defender with his body, and then making the catch when the defender's all over him. He just excels at contested catches, and so many of his catches are not contested because he's just so fast and he's such a good route runner. He is an absolute game changer. But when you've got a great corner who's all over him, Odunze is winning anyway.
Trevor Maddich is with us. I got a bunch of questions. I got a question about the championship game. I got a question about Penix in the draft, McCarthy in the draft. But I need to know what you thought of Nico Iamaleava. Ian, did I get that right?
I don't even know it.
Iamaleava.
Something like that.
I think I got it the first time. I need Trevor's thoughts on what he saw out of Nico in his first game. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company. Trevor's presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Nico, when you envisioned getting your first career start, I mean, man, did you think it would come out this way?
Yeah, I think I've always had confidence in this team. I knew we was going to go out there and take care of business. And, I'm glad we came out to win and got our seniors a ring and, a bone one, so I'm happy for that.
What does he show you about the future of what you can do here?
Everything, man. Since I've got here, I've gotten nothing but love from the coaching staff, and really the culture here has changed, and I'm happy to be a part of it. It's the start of our 2024 year, so going into it, I think we got a good mindset.
I know you're not surprised by this guy, but what impressed you most about his performance today?
I just think as a young player, the moment, nothing's too big for him. He's very in control and does a great job relating to all the guys at every position, every unit, offense, defense. He's a dynamic leader already as a young guy. Really pleased with his poise and playmaking ability today.
There you go, Nico Aliava, I believe, yesterday in the Cheez-It Bowl. I have my thoughts, but Trevor Maddich is the expert. He's with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, what did you think of Nico's first start against that terrible Iowa offense yesterday?
I thought he was phenomenal. I mean, the Iowa offense was terrible, but the Iowa defense still is one of the best in the country, even with a couple of opt-outs and a couple of injuries and stuff. That's still a defense that makes a living messing with young quarterbacks. They give them different looks, different coverages, disguises pre-snap, and they get inside a young quarterback's head and make them second-guess what they're doing. They make them question their knowledge. They make them question their decision-making, and then physically they come after them, right? And Nico was just confident. He played like he'd been there before, and he hadn't been there before against a defense like this, not like he was as the starter and as the man. I mean, I thought he was outstanding. He ran the ball well at times, which is good, and he threw the ball exceptionally well. Overall, his QBR, when you think about this, QBR relates not just your passing, but passing, running, what you do when you do it. It's more of a comprehensive quarterback rating. 100 is perfect, 50 is average. He was 80 against this Iowa defense. Joe Milton over the course of the season was 70. And so, I thought he was absolutely incredibly encouraging for this outing.
So I have a couple thoughts on Nico, and I want to kind of roll through these quickly, but just give me your kind of reaction to the opinion. My first is Nico's going to have to put on some weight. If he's going to run the way that he ran yesterday against Iowa, he's going to, A, have to put on some weight to take the hits in the SEC, and B, he's got to take a little bit better care of the football. What do you think on that?
Both of those things are true. He's listed at 6'6", 206. His entire body is a target-rich environment, let's put it that way. And he was sacked 6 times. I mean, they got to him and got him on the ground 6 times. And so, he's going to get hit until he figures out how to protect himself a bit better. Keep in mind this as well, that concussions happen a lot with quarterbacks when they are taken down and their head hits the turf, especially if it's the back of their head. When you're 6'6", your head has a lot farther to go, and there's a much stronger lever to accelerate your head going down into the ground. So, yes, he needs to put on weight, he needs to be stronger, and he needs to protect himself and the ball a little bit better.
The second thing is, I think that Josh Heupel has earned enough credibility over his 3 years as coach at Tennessee that I think that Nico is in the exact right spot. The hype is going to be insurmountable, and yet I feel like Heupel is the perfect guy to manage that and manage the road bumps that Nico is going to have in the offseason in order to keep him grounded and to get him better, whether it's a mechanical thing, whether it's an offensive thing, whether it's an off-the-field thing. Trevor, I think Josh Heupel's perfect coach for him.
Yeah, Heupel's an old-school tough guy. He is not a flashy, let's go out and have a fancy finesse passing game and run around. No. He's a line of scrimmage guy who knows how to coach the up-tempo little guy offense as well. And that's important when you've got a guy like Nico who's been told his entire life that he's the greatest thing ever. He comes to Tennessee with a huge NIL deal, being told he's the greatest thing ever. And the way they managed him this year was really, really good. I mean, overall on the season, he's only got 45 pass attempts.
Yep.
I mean, 19 of those were against Iowa in the bowl game. So it's not a matter of him, being coddled by the coach. Even when he played in the 4 games he played in the regular season, the most attempts he had was 12 against Vanderbilt. So it's not like, they were catering to his ego. They were bringing him along as he needed to be brought along. And I think Heupel will continue to do that because Heupel knows as well as anybody, if not more, that if you have an ultra-talented quarterback whose head is too far in the clouds, he won't be effective. And so this is a very good coach for Nico.
And I'll give Heupel credit too, Trev. He didn't, I think there would have been a lot of pressure to play Nico with the way Milton fell at Florida and everything else. And I don't think Heupel gave into that one bit. I think Heupel stuck with the plan. And I feel really good about where they're set at quarterback. I like how they've played defense this past year. I really am drinking the Kool-Aid of what Josh Heupel is selling with what I saw to Nico without getting too far ahead of it. I do have some thoughts, though, from the playoff that I kind of want your opinion on. First off, Rick Spielman, Trevor, the former general manager of the Vikings, loves J.J. McCarthy. Points to the fact that J.J. McCarthy almost never loses, that he can play in shootouts, that he can play in low-scoring games, that he plays hurt, and that he keeps winning, and thinks that he may go in the top 10 of the draft. I don't see it. I think McCarthy's a good college quarterback. I do not see it in the NFL. Where are you on J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do see him as an outstanding, even a great college quarterback. I don't have confidence that he'll be a great NFL quarterback. I think he'll be a good NFL quarterback. I think he'll be a solid backup who could be a steady starter, but I don't see from him that it factor to be able to take a team to the Super Bowl. Now, I may be wrong because he's only lost 1 game as a starter in his college career, and that was last year against TCU in the playoff. And against Alabama, we talked about quarterback rating. Alabama knew they had to stop this guy. And his quarterback rating, remember, 100 is perfect. He was 92 against Nick Saban and that defense with that tremendous pair of edge rushers coming off the edge. So, I thought J.J. McCarthy he's got a chance to be a solid NFL quarterback. Beyond that, I'm not certain.
Okay, what about Penix now in the NFL?
I think Penix, if he stays healthy, will be an outstanding NFL quarterback because he understands how to manipulate the pocket, which is what a quarterback needs to do. In the NFL, if you're running around too much, if you're not built like Jalen Milroe, like a big running back, then you're going to get hit and you're going to get hurt. Penix got season-ending injuries all 4 years that he was at Indiana. Then he transferred to Washington, 2 years there, stayed healthy except for typical bumps and bruises over the course of 2 years. And he's got the ability to protect himself by manipulating the pocket. There was actually a play that he completed against Texas where there was a free runner coming right up the middle. He just sidestepped him. The guy ran right past him. Then he reset and threw a dart over the middle for about a 20-yard gain. It was just phenomenal. The second thing is just his accuracy. Accuracy is not as abundant in the NFL as it should be. And I think those things will help him as long as he can stay healthy. I think he'll be a phenomenal NFL starting quarterback.
Okay, last one for you. Trevor Maddich is with us. We will not talk to you until Tuesday. The national championship game is Monday. Your first thoughts on Michigan and Washington? Yeah,
first thoughts, this is a tough one to handicap. My first thought is to go with Michigan. The reason is that Texas ran all over Washington. All over them. In the second half, Washington forced 2 fumbles on Texas runs that were long runs. They were really good runs. And they forced fumbles, they recovered it, stopped them that way. But they didn't really stop the Texas running attack. Michigan is a team that gets stronger as the game goes on the run, and I think they're going to run all over them. I think that's going to be a problem. Plus, I think that Dylan Johnson, the running back for Washington, was helped off the field in terrible pain in the final minute of that game against Texas. Now, I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know how healthy he'll be able to be in the national championship game. But if he can't go, the next guy's a freshman who had 5 carries in the playoff game against Texas. So, I'm not sure what they're going to do, and they just can't afford to be fully one-dimensional. And so I lean Michigan right now, but I want to know more about the health of the Washington running back.
I will say this, Trev. I didn't think Washington was going to beat Oregon the first time. I certainly didn't think Washington was going to beat Oregon the second time. I mean, I think the first time I thought Washington got lucky. Like Dan Lanning went for it a bunch when he didn't need to, and if he hadn't have done that, they probably would have won the game. And then it came down at the very end of the game, and they were playing at home, and I'm like, all right, they got lucky. Then they played in the Pac-12 championship, and I still think they got a little lucky because I didn't think Oregon played their best game. Then I was like, well, I picked against them the first 2 times. I'm not going to pick against them the third time. And I'm done doubting Washington. I mean, I just want to see Washington lose before I, crap on them. Trevor, great stuff as always. Appreciate your time. Great job, by the way, last night on ESPN Radio. Will we have you right here on 102.5 The Game doing the coverage of the national championship game?
Thanks, Jared. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Will, that's a question. Yeah. No. Yes. I will be doing pregame, halftime, and postgame for the national championship game. I've done that for the last 15 or so years, and it's one of my favorite things to do in the broadcast season.
Man, it was wonderful. Trevor Maddich, as always, presented by our friends at Houston Clinic Orthopedics. Trevor, great call last night. Have a good call on Monday.
Thank you, man.
Yep, Trevor Maddich joining us on the program. Barry Trotz is on his way back from Sweden, where he was at the World Juniors. USA, by the way, I just saw won on the quarterfinals, 7-2. And so as Barry is out there, Brian Poyle, assistant general manager, will join us next. As the Predators had a wonderful road trip, we'll do that next. Stillman & Company, presented by Jarrett Companies, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are presented by Jarrett Companies. Happy New Year, everybody. Barry Trotz normally joins us at 5 o'clock, but he is, was he traveling back from Sweden at this point, or is he still in Sweden, or what's it?
Yep, he'll be back tomorrow, back in Smashville tomorrow from Sweden.
There you go. So he's traveling back, which means Brian Poyle is with us, Predators Assistant General Manager, presented by Gary Force Acura and by Pourvu, with over 10,000 square feet of wine, spirits, and over 1,500 domestic import and craft beers, with a massive array of ready-to-drink cocktails. Pourvu is located on Indian Lake Boulevard in Hendersonville. Let's start with this. What a great road trip. I mean, anytime a team loses in overtime, I get super disappointed because it's weird. You still get a point out of it. But it was a really competitive game that you could have won, and then it comes down like that sudden death moment. So you end up, getting the 1 point the first. Then you go on the road to Washington with Askarov and net. You guys get the win there. And all of a sudden, it feels like just when I feel like this team's starting to maybe turn it down a little bit, then they turn it back up. That must have been a really, really big way to end the year for you guys.
Yeah, it was a really good way to finish up 2023. I mean, I thought they were both winnable games. I think we could have, should have won the Detroit game. We could have played a little better to win that game, and then to come back, respond on a back-to-back like that versus Washington. It was a really good win, and really good for Askarov to get his first win.
So I'm watching the game on my couch. I'm not from Russia. I've never been to Russia. I don't watch that Russia propaganda RT television. I don't know. I'm not from Russia. But to see Askarov, as young as he is, go into that shootout with Ovechkin coming down with a chance, really, if I'm sitting there watching and thinking, if Ovechkin misses his shot, the Predators are going to win the shootout. And for Askarov to make the stop and to have the game that he had Saturday night, that has to get not only you guys really excited, but it probably has to mean a lot for his confidence, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to come up under those circumstances, too, where he got a chance to come in that game and play versus that team against, that is the most popular team over in Russia. The Washington Capitals are, obviously, with Ovechkin. So to do it in that fashion was great. I thought he had a good game. I thought our team played hard in front of him. I know the guys were battling hard. And then after the game, I went and talked to Yarod and congratulated him, obviously, on how he did. And he was really excited for what had happened. And I asked him two questions. One, I don't know if you watched the game, you would have saw that every time Kuznetsov or Ovi took a shot on him and he saved it, and there was a whistle blown, they came up and talked to him both times. So I said to him, what were they saying to you? And he said, Kuzi, I know Kuzi. I've gotten to play with him before, and he was telling me some jokes in Russia. He said with Ovi, he didn't know Ovi before, never played with him, never on the ice before with him, who's arguably the best Russian player ever. He said he was talking trash to him. And then to have the game unfold like you just mentioned a few minutes ago, close to a situation where we weren't going to win the game at all. Goal gets called back. We win the game in a shootout. And for him, to try to put this in comparison to folks who in North America, as if you were a Canadian kid, to have these two guys go up against you in a shootout would be an equivalent of like Mark Messier and then Wayne Gretzky going up and shooting up against you. And this is what Askarov got to. So huge moment for him. I mean, I asked him, did his family stay up and watch? They watched the first two periods and then went to bed and watched the next one in the morning. His friends were texting in the morning. Pretty special moment for him personally, but even to do it against his countrymen, that was pretty neat.
Brian Poyle's with us. So a couple weeks ago, I asked Barry, I said, okay, I told him I was friends with Santa. Like, I'm Jewish, so I don't celebrate Christmas, so I grew up with Santa and I know him pretty well. And I said, if you were going to ask Santa for something, what would you ask Santa for? And he said he would ask Santa for offense, which guys go about looking for ways to improve the current team while also balancing out that there's a whole offseason in which you guys have to prepare for the future of the team.
Yeah, excellent question, and I think that's what's happening right now. If you look how we're dividing and conquering. So we've got myself, who's with the team right now in Nashville, Scott Nichols with the team in Milwaukee, Barry and Jeff Kelty over in Sweden watching the World Juniors. I think that's exactly what we're doing. So we've got an eye on development in Milwaukee, what's happening in Nashville, and looking at the draft for next seasons. But you're exactly right. You're having to focus on all those different areas at the same time to try to make a difference. So we're always looking to improve the team here, see who we have available in Milwaukee, and then also for the draft and trade deadline coming up. So it's a balancing act for sure.
Have you gotten any calls so far about people early trade season kind of kicking the tires ahead of trade season? Just hey, you guys have all that cap space. We're going to want to add, maybe a defenseman or something like that. If we do, we may need to run it through you in order to keep our cap space. Do you have those conversations yet, or when do those kind of start?
Yeah, another good question. So in terms of the cadence of how the year goes, most teams, they make it through this World Juniors because it's the most important tournament to this point in the season for amateurs and for the draft. And then most teams have their amateur and pro meetings in mid-January, right after this. So then the teams will get together with their amateur group, get together with their pro group, and at that point, that's when they start formulating their game plans for what they want to do for the rest of the season, trade deadline, off season. So most of those calls you're talking about are about to happen probably about in 2-3 weeks from now.
Is there like a slick way that you guys go about doing this, or is it going to be just hey, we got all this cap space, we know people are going to want to add. We may want to add, when talking about you looking at yourself and say, hey, might want to add something here without mortgaging anything big in the future. But then like maybe a hesitance that, if I pick up the phone and I call Detroit, then Detroit's going to think, they've got me. So now I've got to try to figure out a way to get Detroit to pick up the phone to call me. Are there games at that level that get played at that point in time?
So as far as strategy, I think, and specifically cap, if we just take those two things you're bringing up to me, we're in a good spot. We're in a good spot. So we have as much cap space as any team in the league on every given night right now. So we're in a really good spot to utilize that cap space either for our needs or to try to help someone else and get something in advance for it. So I think that will be a big part of our discussion when we get together with our pro scouting meetings is what can we do with this to help our team in the immediate future and in the future? What are maybe some teams looking to do for players that they need to jostle spots? Because most of the teams that think they have got a legitimate chance of winning the Stanley Cup are all capped out right now. So they're going to need a middleman or something to happen. And so hopefully there'll be an opportunity for us to take advantage of those things.
Do you think that there's going to be, Brian Poyles with us, assistant general manager of the Predators, do you think that there's going to be any massive changes on the NHL front with the Predators that we all know? I feel like, and one good week or one bad week might change this one way or another, but I feel like this is going to be like a constant every night fight until the end, and either this team's going to make it or they're going to be right on the cut line out like last year. I certainly don't think that we would think that the Predators are at a point where, competing for the cup is probably likely. I mean, I think anything's possible, but I think we would say it's probably not likely. So with that, do you think that this team could make a big addition or big change, or do you think that, as Barry has said, he's not going to sacrifice the future of the Predators just to help out the immediate future of the Predators? But is there a way that there can be something that checks both boxes?
Yeah, I think there could be, and I think that's our job to look at all those different things. I think we definitely want to help the team now, and I would agree with your assessment. I think every night it's shown so far this season we're battling, we're working hard. We're in every game, regardless of who we're playing. We've beat some really good teams this year, and we've lost a few games we should have won. So I think you're probably right on where we could possibly look to finish. So we're going to be in that potentially that right in between spot. So I think what Barry's already told you is probably still spot on. Is we're not going to probably leverage too much of the future, but I think we're still looking to add. I mean, if you look at what's happening with their team, even with the new additions this summer of Nyquist and O'Reilly and Shin, those guys, I mean, those were additions. And I think those guys have been hugely helpful to our whole group in helping your young guys and grow. So I think we're going to continue with that same progression. And if there's an opportunity to utilize cap space, take advantage of what another team needs to do, and we can help our team the same way, we're going to do it.
I look at the addition of Ryan O'Reilly, and I think to myself, right after the draft, Barry sat down and said, I have to decide who's going to be here and who's not going to be here, and who do we want to be the leaders of this team going forward. And I just heard that as I was sitting, and it was kind of like, okay, that's kind of like GM talk or whatever it was. And then the next day, Matt Duchene got bought out, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what that meant. And then Ryan O'Reilly got brought in, and there was some I wouldn't say like sentiment but there was, I think, a little bit of a fan angle to this, which was that's too long or that's too much money. I have figured out that if I were to say, hey, we need to get a defenseman, right? Well, and we got $5 million to get a defenseman. You can go get a defenseman for $5 million because you'll have about 8 guys. And so the guy that we really want is going to get 6. So then we don't, but if you really want somebody like that one individual person that you have to go target that person, you guys did that with O'Reilly. Do you think he's been even better than you thought he was going to be when you brought him in? Because every night I watch him play, and I know Forsberg is putting the puck in the net every night. Every night I come away saying, thank God this guy's on the Predators.
Yep, I would agree with you. I think Ryan's been fantastic for our group for the things you're seeing on the ice. So you're seeing what he's doing to help Forsberg. I think so far, again, the season's still early. Forsberg's the most committed he's been so far, meaning every game, night in and night out, super consistent with how he's playing, his effort level, and it's showing in his productions. That's just one example. The Nyquist added to line's helping, and I think we also have all these young centers, whether it's Cody Glass, Tommy Novak, Parsons been back and forth, to learn from Ryan O'Reilly, to see what he's doing. So just to give you an example, what you're maybe not able to see is at practice, for example. So even morning skates, Ryan O'Reilly, the practice will be over. The guys will then go do additional drills. Maybe defensemen are working on one-timers, centers are taking faceoffs. We'll go through all that. That'll be over. And then still, if you watch the practice, Ryan O'Reilly is still out on the ice. And a lot of times he'll grab the guys who aren't even playing in the game and want to do work with them. I mean, just to speak of what that true leadership and mentorship is. So I think he's been excellent both on the ice, but also all the things he's doing off the ice, leadership, doing all the right things. He's been a really good addition.
Now I'm going to ask you the other side of this of what's up with Roman Josi? I'm not going to say he's not playing well, but he has not been this season as consistent in both ends as I am used to Roman Josi being.
I think Roman's been good. I agree. I think we've any Predators fan who's been with us for a long time has seen Roman at all-star caliber, where he's been one of the best defensemen in the league, and you're seeing him night in and out, rush up the puck, carry the puck, help produce, help kind of lead our offense. I would say a couple of things is maybe you're accurate at the moment that Roman still has more to give and his season can get a little better. And 2, I think the way the system in which we're playing under Andrew Burnett has changed a little bit. If you see now we're doing a lot of different things to move the puck up quicker up the ice versus where you're probably used to seeing Roman constantly be the one taking it from our defensive zone, weaving through everybody.
Yes.
And that's, and that's exceptional skills that Roman has to be able to do that. There's not a lot of defensemen that can do that in the league. But I think the system has changed a little bit so where he's not having quite as many puck touches, especially in the neutral zone, as you may have remembered him from last time, but offensively, and also I would say power play-wise, where he typically had kind of been, everything ran through Roman on the power play. Now we've got a lot more options on our power play. I think our power play is more diverse than it's ever been, more options for scoring, more options for plays, so it's not everything's running through Roman as much. So maybe I would say combination of what you're saying with Roman could have a little bit better season, but also systematically things have changed a little bit.
Brian Poyle, Predators Assistant General Manager. Brian, thanks for stopping by as the lone wolf in town here while everybody else is out in Sweden and Milwaukee and everywhere else. Big 2 points tonight. Good luck.
Thank you, Jared.
Yep. Brian Poyle joining us as always in the Barry Trot Spot, again presented by Gary Force Acura and by Porvu. And I really thought, the Yossi question, I thought I was going to get like and I felt smarter because of that. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about Twice Daily. That's right. Twice Daily wants to send you to Italy. Did Santa not give you what you wanted? Twice Daily wants to send you. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app to get entered to win. Every sub is a chance to win. Mobile order Italian sub counts as 2 times entries. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more information. Twice Daily's made-to-order offerings allow you to get exactly what you want when you want. Customize those sandwiches with preferred meats, cheeses, and bagels with all the fixings and snacks prepared the second that you order. Download the Twice Daily app today to join their loyalty program and unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily. We'll earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. Made to order sandwiches and much more. Twice Daily has you covered, fresh all day.
Brings us to our most outstanding player on offense for tonight's game. Who else but Michael Penix? Michael, 430 passing yards in this game. You told us earlier this week, I've yet to play my best game as a Husky. Was tonight it?
No, we got one more to go. We got one more to go.
Michael, when you decided to return for a 6th season, could you ever have imagined this, and why?
Man, definitely, man. That's definitely the biggest reason we came back. You know, I said it before the season started. You know, our goal was to win a national championship, and now we got the opportunity, we got the shot to do it. So, man, Husky Nation, stand up, man. We going to the Natty, man. Let's go.
Michael Penix Jr. Again, I said after the Big Ten championship game, I said he needs to be the Heisman Trophy winner, and everybody got mad, especially Caroline got mad when, oh, no, he didn't have these stats that Jaden Daniels had, and he didn't this, and he didn't that. I'm like, he carried his team to the Pac-12 championship. They beat Oregon twice. He had the Heisman moment, and everybody said, no, I didn't know what I was talking about, and then he had the performance he had last night. Now, I did not know this. Did you know, Ian, that Michael Penix Jr. was committed to the University of Tennessee?
I believe this was a Pruitt situation.
He was committed under Butch Jones, and when they had that whole Shiano Saturday, and as I used to call Jeremy Pruitt, the people's coach, when Jeremy Pruitt became the people's coach, and he got up there and he gave you that press conference that you all ate up because he had a hillbilly twang and he said "I" a bunch, his staff picked up the phone, called Michael Penix Jr. and said, we're not interested. No thanks. Go home. In fact, Michael Penix, you know, a lot of times these kids will say that they opened their recruitment up, but they didn't really open their recruitment up. It got open for them, but they want to save face. They don't want to be embarrassed as somebody that, you know, basically got dumped. Michael Penix wrote at the time, quote, I'd like to thank the previous coaches at the University of Tennessee and the fans for believing in me, but after conversations with the new staff, it seems that's not the place that I'm being wanted. So at this time, I announce that I have decommitted from the University of Tennessee and will reopen my recruitment. Jeremy Pruitt didn't want Michael Penix Jr. And you want to know why Jeremy Pruitt didn't want Michael Penix Jr.? Because Jeremy Pruitt was incompetent. That's why. Remember when Tennessee hired him? You all loved him. You loved him. Remember? We're going to do things the Tennessee way. Aight. And you people were wearing T-shirts that said, aight. You people loved him. He was your coach. You stopped them from hiring Greg Schiano. And oh my God, what a disaster that would have been, everybody assumes, so that you could get Jeremy Pruitt. I remember when they gave Jeremy Pruitt a contract extension. And I said, why? Jeremy Pruitt's doing an okay job. And when you do an okay job, you get to keep doing your job. You don't get fired, but you don't get a contract extension. Why are we giving Jeremy Pruitt oh, Jared, you don't understand. This is Philip Fulmer showing faith in Jeremy Pruitt so that when Alabama calls, when Saban retires, he won't want to leave. I sat there, are you people crazy? But the answer is you people wanted to believe what you wanted to believe, not what was evident or true or anything else. Remember when Aaron Murray came on this program at SEC Media Days and said, yeah, Jeremy Pruitt, the guy that I heard about at Georgia, he's going to be a terrible coach. And it blew up. You guys didn't want to believe that. So why am I bringing this up? When we all know that Pruitt was a bum, and we all know that he can't even get a job right now, and he was a bum who was cheating and couldn't even win with the cheating, and Michael Penix is going to the national championship, and you already know. Why are you rubbing our faces in this, Jared? And here's why. Because when I look at the Tennessee Titans, I see incompetence. And it started right at the beginning. This isn't a, well, you know, give us a chance to prove that we can. That every move they've made outside of DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, has been a bad move. And when I watch what the Titans are doing right now, between Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel, I am convinced that these two guys, just like Jeremy Pruitt's coaching staff, do not have a clue. I know. Ran Carthon came from the 49ers, where he was, what, 4th in command? 5th in command? Yeah, I'm not sure he's the reason why they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Just like I don't think Jeremy Pruitt is the reason that Alabama won the national championship. Alabama was fine before Pruitt, and they've been fine after. But Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel walked in here, and they knew. And you knew, and I knew, and Ian knew, and Max knew, and we all knew they had to fix the offensive line. Vrabel even said it. Jim Wyatt made a comment to him about needing 3 new offensive linemen, and Vrabel at the combine stopped him and said maybe 5 new offensive linemen. Why? Because he knew. Andre Dillard, bust. Peter Skoronski, right now, looking like a bust. Aaron Brewer at $4.3 million, can't even snap the ball consistently. Right guard, Brunskill's been fine, a little bit injured. And right tackle, Dylan Radins and Chris Hubbard have represented the best position on the Titans offensive line in 2023. And I think that says more about the Titans than it does about the job that Hubbard and Radins have done at right tackle. It's obvious. It's incompetence. That doesn't mean that the Titans will be buried in the sand with their heads about the incompetence going on around them. It doesn't mean that that'll be the case for forever, right? Because eventually they'll lose enough and they'll get fired. Again, I think 2024, if they don't make changes with the coach and the GM, I think 2024 is going to be the exact same as 2023. If they don't have a resolution to get better, and that get better would involve having new people help them get better, if they don't do that, you're going to be in the exact same boat this time next year. Maybe you'll win one more game or lose one more game. I don't know. And then you'll fire the coach and you'll fire the GM and on you'll go. But why do that when incompetence is staring you right in the face? The Jacksonville Jaguars had this grand plan of hiring Urban Meyer to run their team with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. This wasn't the first team, by the way, that had reached out to Urban, that had wanted Urban to be a coach, but this was the first team that had Trevor Lawrence as a potential franchise quarterback and was willing to give Urban the money and the control that Urban desired. Urban was in charge of the franchise. We don't even know who's in charge here. Urban was in charge of that franchise. They saw the incompetence right away. Whether it was not flying back with the team or fingering the ass seam of that girl in that bar's butt or whatever it might be. Why are you looking at me like that, Max? It happened, did it not? Thank you. Then it was the kick in the player. It was always something with Urban. What? I am not going to be able to do this show if Max Hurst is just going to sit here and laugh while I'm sitting here on the air. Ian, did it not happen?
There was some pictures with fingers in weird spots.
In the jean seam of that girl's tush was Urban Meyer's hand.
That's correct.
We all saw it. It happened. Just like Bobby Petrino fell off a motorcycle with his mistress. It happened. We saw it. You can't unsee that picture of him with that neck brace on at Arkansas. But they realized, man, this is incompetent. We got to get this out of here. And Jacksonville, they played the Titans the week before Urban got fired. They lost something like 20-0, and I don't even think the Titans played very well in that game, but it didn't matter because Jacksonville was like a ghost team. It was like a corpse of a team. And a year later, they won the division, and they're in the AFC divisional round. So you're going to keep doing what's proven incompetent already? You're going to let Jeremy Pruitt kick away Michael Penix Jr.? Or are you going to make some changes that you need to make? Because what happened this past year, regardless of the position the team was left in, and the team was not left in a good spot, but it also wasn't left completely destitute. But it wasn't good enough, the job they did this past year. In fact, it was very, very bad. So you can either make excuses or you can try to get better. But when I see Michael Penix out there, I think, man, aren't you glad your people's coach ran him away? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. We'll get to your phones. Plus, Ian, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend.
You're referring to the next segment?
Yeah.
I did actually see that. This is not the first time that's happened.
This is not the first time that DeAndre Hopkins has gotten on Twitter and called me a racist. And it happened again this weekend. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. The NFL's regular season is wrapping up, and there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And I'm just going to tell you right now, bet Jacksonville on Sunday. There's going to be nobody there. I think the Titans have packed it in for the season. You saw the game on Sunday. Jacksonville winning, they win the division. Put your money on Jacksonville. Live same-game parlays. Find new bets in the Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub and more. Visit FanDuel.com/JGM to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the National Football League. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit is required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Imagine the first interview you've ever done, like getting your hair done. How often do you get your hair done, and what do you look for when your barber's working on you?
Well, I got locks, man, and all I do is wash and condition and moisturize these, once or twice a week. But I get a haircut on the side here and there, maybe every other week. Nothing crazy. I usually do it myself. So.
There you go. That was DeAndre Hopkins giving everybody the info on his haircut as the Titans were wrapping up their final day of work before heading to Houston. Ian, when it happened, a lot of times people, because this gets people on Twitter say, Jared Stillman just says this stuff for clicks. Which, by the way, I'm on the radio, So people clicking on Twitter, that doesn't matter to me. You listening to the radio is what matters, but that's a different discussion. Ian, did I not say when it happened on Friday, I said I didn't like that.
You did say that.
I did not like DeAndre Hopkins getting a haircut. And I tweeted out, I said that was the moment that I first started to wonder if Mike Vrabel was losing the team. Because they play hard in all the games, and everybody had been saying, for the most part, the right things, and they had that great comeback at Miami, and it still felt like, to Vrabel's credit, that everybody was toting the rope in the exact right direction. Then all of a sudden, on the Friday before a meaningless game that the Titans are trying to tell themselves and tell other people is a meaningful game, DeAndre Hopkins is off getting a haircut, talking to the media. Again, you may not like it, but it's work. Which led me to send off that tweet about whether or not Mike Vrabel had lost the locker room. Again, I didn't say he had, but I did think that, oh boy, this might be the first time that I've started to notice this. So I wake up on Saturday to a tweet from DeAndre Hopkins that would later be deleted by DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, in response to my tweet, quoting it and saying, I smell an undertone of ... not going to say it though. To which I am reminded of January 8th of 2019, almost 5 years ago, when DeAndre also quoted another tweet of mine by saying, the undertone is real. Again, the undertone essentially saying, that comment that the coach might be losing the locker room because I decided to disrespect the media with a very unprofessional hair appointment during my press conference was racist. That's the translation, right? So instead of defending myself about this, that I really wondered, what do we make of all this? Which is why I took it to the guys on the pregame show. And here's what Derek said about Hopkins. Again, a former all-pro wide receiver, the best receiver in the history of the Titans. Here's what he said about DeAndre deciding, I'm going to get my hair cut while I do my press conference.
Again, get your hair cut. But you choose to do it like you said, on the clock, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Because you could have told Jim Wyatt or anybody else, whoever did that interview, you could have said, hey, listen, let's do it afterwards, or let's do it right quick before I get my hair cut. Let's do it right quick. Ask my questions. I'm going to take, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Let's do it. Then I get my hair cut. If you were still in the hunt for a playoff berth, this game really meant something going into the playoffs. I don't think you would have done that because you didn't do it in prior weeks when I know, you got your hair cut there. That's it. So why did you pick that time to do it?
Okay. So for everybody out there that was, he was just getting a haircut, Jared. It didn't mean anything. You're making a big deal out of nothing. This is fine. Some people were like, I like it. I like him getting a haircut while he's actually at work. D-Mace is telling you, no. Dude, get your haircut on your own time. Just do your job. Do your press conference. I know you don't want to do it. It's part of the job. Everybody has parts of their job that they don't like. Every single person. But you have to do them. Again, what if I was sitting here doing a segment that I didn't want to do and I was just clipping my fingernails while we were doing it? Clip, 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 clip. What was that? I'm sorry. Clip, clip. What was? No. Pay respect, at least, for the 5 seconds you got to talk to these people. And don't give me I like that he was getting a haircut. But also, when DeAndre Hopkins called me a racist 5 years ago about the undertones of my Deshaun Watson comments, I did kind of freak out a little bit. I was like, oh my God, this is where this is going to go. And then cancel culture is going to get a hold of it. And I remember them talking about it on Dan Patrick and on Fox Sports and Jason Whitlock and all kinds of stuff. And I was a little bit younger. When I got this on Saturday, I didn't even think about it. I just brushed it off and laughed. DeAndre, by the way, later deleted the tweet. Ian, do you think he was told to delete the tweet, or do you think that he did it because he realized that the point he was making was stupid?
He probably realized it was probably a little off base.
I mean, this is
Hopefully he realized that.
This is what Derek had to say about that.
But then when somebody calls you out on it, you
That's
go
what I'm
straight
upset
to the
about.
race car.
That's the part I'm
Hop,
upset about.
stop it, man.
That's
You're better than that. And I would tell you that straight to your face. You're better than that. You have no reason. If you have no proof that Jared, is going to, you're saying something because you're saying that because he's a black man getting his haircut. If you don't have proof, don't bring it up. Don't say undertone of, I'm not going to say it, and then you delete it.
Exactly.
That's childish.
That is, man.
That's damn childish.
That's
It truly is. So now you throw out this sort of this perception. No, what if nobody knew Jared?
Sure.
And the first thing they read is D-Hop. They love D-Hop, and the first thing they read is, then they think, oh, he's a racist. Yeah. He don't like D-Hop because he's black. That is not the truth.
Absolutely.
People, that is not the truth. He didn't like the optics of what D-Hop was doing. That's right. Because if you've been listening to Jared, he's been praising D-Hop the whole season.
And honestly, I don't care about the, is Jared, is this? Look, man, I didn't like it. There's nothing you can tell me that will convince me to like DeAndre Hopkins getting a haircut when he needs to be doing work at work. I tweeted out when somebody said something about, it's just a media interview, who cares? I'm like, hey, man, if he brought the barber into the wide receiver room and said, hey, we got to watch film, and by the way, he's going to go ahead and cut my hair, and you're, I don't know how long it takes it to cut his hair. It takes me about 5 minutes to cut my hair. But if you did that, I don't think the wide receiver coach or Vrabel would like that very much. Why? Because you're basically disrespecting whatever else it is you're doing while you're getting a haircut. And so I will never like that. I've never seen that before, and I hope to never see it again. Unless it's like one of those barbershop shows, which is literally a show that people do that is emulating what people do on their free time just by gossiping and bullcrapping at the barbershop. That's different. This is a job. This is work. I understand. The games are meaningless. I get it. But I'm never going to not like that. And you can call me every mean thing in the book or allude to every mean thing, and I'm not going to care. Because I know what I think is a buttoned-up organization. I know the way the Titans have done business for all these years before that, and I've never seen that before. And I know, and like people don't want to hear this, but, and again, it's his money, not mine. But there's a reason why DeAndre Hopkins sat out there in free agency this year like an old vegetable in the refrigerator. Because he had a reputation. And I remember when he got here and he was being asked questions about not practicing this and practicing that. And he was like, look, that was overblown, and kind of alluded to the idea that it was Bill O'Brien that did the overblowing. And I'm sure there's probably some truth to that. Because I don't think his availability or practicing, I don't think that's been a problem here. But that reputation is real. And that costs him money. So maybe, if nothing else, I'm trying to help. But I'm not even worried about him. And the example that it sets with Will Levis, posting a picture with the crying emoji and laughing of the DeAndre doing an interview while getting his hair cut. I hate the example that it sets. But I'm not worried about DeAndre. I'm talking about Vrabel's kind of hold on the locker room. The standard with which Mike Vrabel holds his football team to. That's what I'm worried about. Because, look, I don't see eye to eye with Vrabel. Vrabel doesn't see eye to eye with me. I get it. I want him fired. He probably doesn't think he deserves to be fired. I don't think anybody's ever asked, but I highly doubt if you said, Mike, do you think you should be fired, that he would say yes. But the one thing that I will say about Mike Vrabel over all these years is that even when he's done some egregiously stupid stuff, that team has stood behind him and has played hard for him and has pulled the rope in the direction for him, and they have done a great job of not throwing guys under the bus. That's why I was shocked when they brought Jaleel Johnson back after he tweeted out, it's not the defense's fault when he got released. Not because I didn't think Jaleel Johnson could help, but because I see Vrabel as the kind of guy who's like, nope, we don't do that here. And so when they brought him back and Vrabel was like, well, it was a mistake and I promise you he regrets it, I was like, wait a minute. Are we talking about the same team? Then I got guys getting haircuts in the locker room. And again, I don't have a problem with getting a haircut in the locker room when it's time to get haircuts. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with haircuts in the locker room when we're supposed to be doing something else. That's what I have a problem with. And again, you can call me whatever you want to call me. You can get mad about it. You can do whatever you want. And it is not going to bother me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Matt says, please do not say you people when referencing Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt may be more embarrassed to be from Tennessee than our literacy rate, which he added to. Before the season, every pro rating team put the Titans 25th or worse and knew the Titans were 25th at best. They've been grateful for any controversial media take because it's the only thing that keeps the Titans in the media. I mean, I would say that on a national level, I don't even think controversial stuff is a big media thing. I mean, today, Vrabel got mad at a question Gentry Estes asked, and I didn't have a problem with the question. I didn't have a problem with Vrabel's response, saying that it effing sucks to lose, which it does. But as he said that, I mean, I heard it, and I was like, okay, Mike, good for you. But at the same time, I also thought, Ian, do we have the short version of that cut?
Sure.
Of Vrabel earlier today? I thought about this like, this is going to be a big deal around here for 3 minutes. And then after that, it's going to be over and people are going to forget about it. And I don't even think it's a big deal. But could you imagine if the Dallas Cowboy coach said this?
Mike Stillman need to win for a lot of reasons. We'll expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry. Did you have another thought or no? I'm just curious.
Well,
it sucks. Losing. Awful. That's why I want to win.
I have a problem with that. But if the Dallas Cowboys coach said that, that would be leading off Sports Center. That would be Colin Cowherd doing wall-to-wall. Skip Bayless and Michael Irvin would be yelling at each other about it. Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith would be yelling at each other. It would be constant. But you're not the Cowboys. You're the Titans. You're the Titans. So when you say like, oh no, the Titans are lucky for controversy because that keeps them in the media, I'm like, what media? The local media here, they're always in the local media here. They're the local football team here. Across the country, they're not even in it now. So I don't understand what we mean about how, we should be grateful for any kind of media one way or another. One texter says, I think Amy Adams Strunk needs to sell the team to somebody who really cares. When was the last time she was shown on TV being in the box? Is she ever at the game? Must have a good tax write-off to keep the team. First of all, I think Amy Adams Strunk cares about the team a lot. Sometimes I think she might care a little too much, where they do things that I'm like, you don't need to be doing that, just like the firing John Robinson in the middle of a season, which I didn't agree with. Secondly, Amy does go to the games, and she does sit in a box. The reason you don't see her on TV is because she's not the owner of the Cowboys. If she owned the Cowboys, you'd see her in the box. If she were Jerry Jones, you'd see her in the box. She's not Jerry Jones, but she goes to the games. Look, if you want Amy to sell the team because you don't think she's running it right, that's your business. But if you think she doesn't care, I don't believe that. I mean, I know she cares. Like I said, sometimes I worry she might care a little too much. That's all. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman & Company. Let's talk about White Bison. That's right. White Bison, stay warm and cozy with their new honey-based drinks. That's right. A cinnamon bee hive latte, an iced honey nut macchiato, a vanilla rooibos. I don't even know how to say this. Rooibos? I'm sure it tastes fabulous. Vanilla rooibos? Whatever that may be, tea latte. I bet it's freaking awesome. In fact, I'm going to leave here and go to White Bison and get one afterwards. White Bison is your local coffee shop with food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. Download the app and order ahead. Makes life much easier. When you download the Twice Daily and White Bison app, enroll in the rewards program, and you can place orders on the go anytime and automatically earn on every purchase. Download the app in order to order ahead, earn rewards, and get one free coffee every time you buy 7. Part of White Bison's rewards, buy 7, get one free. Download the Twice Daily and White Bison app today. Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. TJ's my realtor. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. The Chicago Blackhawks stink. 11, 23, and 2, good for 24 points, though Connor Bedard does have 15 goals and 18 assists on the season, and again, they're supposed to get good down the road because they have him. Meanwhile, the Predators are 20-16-1, good for 41 points, and are getting right there on that playoff-ish cut line kind of thing. It's going to probably go all the way down to the end of the year. We start with the coach's take. Here is Andrew Burnett on playing the Blackhawks.
They were hard games. We were kind of fortunate to get the overtime win in Chicago. I didn't think it was one of our best games. I thought they played really hard. Same with the game here. I mean, it's going to be a hard game coming off of what happened to them 2 nights ago. We expect them to throw everything at us, and we've had not one easy minute against them in I guess 65 or 125-minute games we played against them, or time on ice. So we expect the same tonight.
So here's the deal when it comes to the Predators. Right now, the Predators sit in the first wild card spot of the Western Conference, which would mean that they would get a trip to Colorado instead of a trip to, shockingly, Vancouver or Vegas. But what's important about that is that Arizona has 2 games in hand and is 1 point behind. Meanwhile, you've got a game in hand on Seattle, and they're 2 points behind. And then there's Edmonton, and then there's St. Louis, and then there's John Hines. And so when you play the bad teams, which today, Chicago is a bad team. When you play the bad teams, they're the second worst team in the conference, or Calgary, who is also a bad-ish team. When you play them like you do Thursday, you need to win, because those are points on the schedule that come again at the end of the year at that, crunch time, you're going to really wish you had. And I know Brian Poyle was on the show earlier today, and he said that there are some games where they beat some good teams, and there are some games where they lost to some teams that they really wish they could have back. And they got to get out of that from now on. They got to win the games against the bad teams. The Blackhawks are a bad team, and they need to win this game against a bad team tonight and carry the momentum they had from the past road trip. That's it for us. What a lively and wonderful show today. Boy, what a great show today. Everybody seems to just be having a great. Max is up next with the pregame. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow, too.